to go from
Yeah, there isn't really a whole lot at this one,
Well,
is there?
but I didn't.
This is just when we
tell
meet
them
with
I was coming.
legislators,
Oh,
and we
okay.
just
Make sure.
do the beginning
Well, then
of
you go.
setting the platform.
Yeah. Well, with the arrowhead.
Me and Kristen
counties, we
already
had
talked
let
to
them know.
Tom.
Good morning.
Rob
I had to
last
let
week.
Barb
And then
know.
that actually
That was
worked out
with
pretty
the
good because Dwayne Hill
counties.
came with us to see something.
I look at the
Yeah.
agenda
Awesome.
using
So
the
actually,
Well, I'm
agenda
gonna see,
I talked to the guy up in
Well, then,
split screen. I had
I,
Policy
if it gets too
workshops
late,
is
I'm just
usually
not going to go.
presentations at this
Oh.
meeting, and then
So, but
Thursday.
so I-
Actually, you could use this now if you wanted to make,
So Jeff will probably go to that one for you.
force that
well,
into your.
maybe we just shouldn't because there's too many variables.
And I think I already know
Put
what's
this together if we
gonna
go.
be
Well,
added,
it's
so
gonna
if
be
he has a
either
different one to
is.
go to,
Can
because we
I,
kinda ran through that
Well,
at,
what I do is I just do the
president
home
of the.
last
home
week when
key.
we were down.
and then,
Association.
they're
go,
going
She
okay,
sent
we're on
me-
this item.
Yeah.
Yeah, sales tax.
And then, and I can just keep following along, or I can go back to the beginning.
So,
I just
I think it'll be
well,
okay.
maybe I won't go.
So-
I don't know.
And then I'll get a
reservation. I didn't
thing
get anything about a reservation.
Well,
email
if
from
they
her.
What do you mean?
just approve it,
That's more
then
data.
you approve it.
Anything that's
I'm
been put
saying
in
the
since
other
that was
one.
published is on this one because this one's live and that one's static.
Hey, Mary, thanks for the
Well,
email.
maybe we
One
can.
item Barry's going to introduce today that isn't
Yeah.
there.
What time, 5:30 or
Okey-dokey.
something?
Yeah.
May I use your charger?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. I've got plenty of battery.
That's fine, Jeff.
Rock on.
Do we have a break before my? Probably not.
I don't know.
I can't remember how we
I
connected
supported
that
the
last.
Lanier
Did I
discussion.
email it to you? And
I think it's time for a
I'm
change.
gonna look at it,
Yeah.
just for my phone.
I'm using colored pencils.
Good morning. I'll call the regular Cook County Board of Commissioners to order, where our mission is supporting community through quality public service. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start our business meeting, I would like to take a few minutes to acknowledge the passing of a great person, Norman Deschamps. I would like to, on behalf of the board, extend our condolences to the family members, to Bobby, who Norman was Bobby's uncle.
Cousin.
And cousin, okay. To all the members of the tribe of the Grand Portage of the Chippewa Band, and to all who knew him. He was a great leader. He was somebody who people looked up to with respect, and the fact that he put his people before his own humble beginning. He was a leader with a steady influence, and as a tribal chairman, he came from a humble background. He was a lifetime fighter for justice and for sovereignty and for dignity. And so he will be remembered throughout the ages as a man who stood up for the equality and the perseverance that he presented to all of us. He came to meetings with a smile on his face. He always had something kind to say, and he always had ideas about how to make things better. He will be missed. And so let's pause for a minute in honor of Norma Deschamps. Thank you. So we will move on to the adjustments to the agenda. Are there any changes?
Madam Chair, I'm requesting in addition of a subordination agreement, I've passed that report around, and I'd ask you just add it on as 7C under the auditor.
Put that under C.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair, we have, we had hired a engineering tech, and we found out yesterday that she's taken another position and will not be joining us. So I would like to add posting of a vacancy of engineering tech under item 4B.
Under 4B, okay. Okay, so anything else? Motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, we offer public comment to anyone who would like to come forth. You will be given 5 minutes to state your concern or comment. You'll sign in with your name, and then after you sign in, then we will give you the 5 minutes. Anyone like to come forward?
Good morning.
Morning, Arvis.
Arvis Thompson, District 1. I'd like to skip to the very end of your agenda today, and the last item of discussion is the why. I find it an interesting proposition that you're thinking of spending $23,000 in looking at the Y's stability, what it needs for repairs, doing some testing. And then in the next breath, we're talking about spending $126,000 to put in bathrooms into a facility that you don't know that it's going to be adequate and that it won't need changes down the road in order to keep everything rolling and flowing like it's supposed to. It seems to me that the cart of the bathrooms is being put before the horse of the review and the needs for the repairs at the Y. So I am asking or suggesting that you might want to think about not putting the money into the bathrooms until you figure out whether that facility can and should support them. And I realize the $126,000 is not Cook County money, all of it. Part of it is, and part of it is from a variety of other sources. But again, the responsible thing to do, I think, is that you look at all the money that's being spent and not just the Cook County dollars, but being responsible for anybody else who might be wanting, thinking about putting money into that facility. So I'm hoping that you will take it off of the agenda, table it, whatever you need to do for right now until you get some further information about the why. I'd also like to know where we are with the law enforcement. That's a $4.5 million facility that right now is, I haven't heard anything lately, and I do just read the paper, and so I am limited in resources there. But where are we with that discussion? I would hate to see it just simply appear as hiring a consultant and we're taking the next step before there's any more comment or input from the community. Your own associates said there was not enough numbers there to warrant building that facility. Looking at 25 years out, you still couldn't justify that we would have the need. Building something and expecting the rest of the state of Minnesota to send prisoners up here to use the facility just strikes me as a build it and they will come. Lastly, I'd like to know, when are we going to have a chance to have a dialogue, us, the community, with you, the community, and have some exchanges that are one-on-one? I like the Tuesday evening meetings. They apparently are not going to be anymore, but there is some other plan underway. When will we know what that plan is, so we have a chance to talk to you? Thank you.
Thank you, Arvis.
Thank you.
We took notes, and one of us will get back to you, Arvis. So moving on to the consent agenda.
Excuse me, no one else is going up? Okay.
I would also like to just spin off of what she's talking about on the why.
Could you state your name, please?
Russell Straub.
Thank you.
I have very big concerns about the amount of money that we are spending in this county. You know, I know the YMCA is a great entity for the community, but I also learned that does the school referendum that they passed, do they have their pulse on putting money into that? Is there money from Cook County School helping the YMCA? No. Why is that? Why is that?
Because the county owns the YMCA, not the school.
So, let me see if I get this right. I'm going to try to connect the dots. So the county owns the YMCA, but who's running the YMCA? Duluth?
It's a complicated set of agreements, but yes, the YMCA Duluth is operating a branch in the building owned by Cook County.
Okay. So how about is there a way that we can streamline that, get Duluth out of the picture, make them be their own business, like I own my own business. Guess what? I close in the winter because I can't make ends meet. That's what you have to do. You have to figure out a business plan that works. So maybe this whole Duluth scenario doesn't work. How about we cut the ties? Grand Marais, I mean, if it means changing the name to YMCA, YMGM. Let Grand Marais own it, be responsible for it, have all those membership monies that are coming in, instead of it going down to a company in Duluth that's saying, hey, we own Holiday up here in Grand Marais. That's where you're going to get your gas. No. It's Grand Marais. Let's own what we own. That's, I guess, my only point as a business person and trying to be realistic about what I have to do to survive in a business. Let's make them have to survive also. I mean, I'm not saying that the YMCA is not a desperately needed thing in this town, but let's make it work where we're not losing money. It's like, I know the golf course used to fund the pool. The campground used to fund all kinds of things. Let's just make things where they have to be responsible as a business owner or a business. Let's make them make it work. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Could ask him to put his name down on phone.
He did.
He did.
I'll contact him.
Someone will get back to you on the issue of the why. There's a lot of history that needs to be explained too. Thank you. Okay, next.
Ray People.
Morning, Ray.
And the why is the hot button. today. And it's the last item on the agenda. So anyway, but before the why, I had a constituent in Lutzen. I'm on the town board there. And another thing, when we have a town board meeting, we always have many copies of the agenda. And if there are more people than our clerk Sharon has printed out agendas for, she goes and makes more. So it's real important to have printed agendas back there for anyone who attends. Anyway, my constituent called very concerned about Jeff's property and wondering in the conversation why the law report isn't in the newspaper. Well, that's one of my husband's favorites in the newspaper. And so I said, well, hasn't that been in the newspaper? Because I haven't been, reading the law report. And he said, no, it hasn't been like it was. So I called Patty Lyson and asked, what's going on with the law report? And, heard, well, now WTIP has it and on their website and so forth. But I learned in talking to people that there was the Zuckerberg system put in place. Who's responsible for the jail of you commissioners?
The sheriff is responsible for the jail.
But nobody is working.
The sheriff is an elected official. He's
Sure.
responsible for jail and sheriff operations.
Absolutely, Jeff.
Yep.
But there's no commissioner who's kind of overseeing what's going on?
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, did you know about the Zuckerberg system that sanitizes the law report so that it's just really brief? And as Brian said, you might as well be reading 10 people went to work in the morning and signed in, and they left at 5. You really don't know that much. So anyway, that was the report that I gave to her, this Zuckerberg system. And I've not been able to check on why that was put in place, how much it costs, what does it do, so I'll follow up on it. But with the why, when I was in real estate, I retired 8 years ago, the square footage price for new construction had gone up to about $150 a square foot. This daycare bathroom is over $1,000 a square foot. Now, there are lots of ramifications, I'm sure. As I was talking to my son this morning, who works at the vet's home, he said, I'm sure it has to be handicap accessible and so forth, but $1,000 a square foot, somebody has to look at that and say, we have one who came in with a bid, and that bid doesn't even cover the demo. Maintenance is going to have to do that. I think that if they're going to come with a bid, it's going to have to cover everything. What is it going to cost here? Maintenance now is covered by the county. I want to get a copy of that old contract to see where in the world. I understand what we are committed to 25 years of covering maintenance for that place. People, a 25-year contract, pretty hard to find. And when you're talking about the county picking up the slack, what is the risk to the Duluth YMCA? If we can't keep this Y going, what is their risk? What kind of skin in the game do they have besides their name? And the Y membership, how many are government employees? The daycare there, how many are government employees?
Thank you, Ray. Those are good points. We'll take them and consider it all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Then we will move on to the consent agenda. Anyone want to pull anything? If not, then we'll need a motion to approve.
So moved.
All in favor? Second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you. So we will now hear from Kristen Foster from the Highway Department.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, colleagues, and members of the public. Before getting into my couple of action items, I wanted to follow up on the bridge resolution that was passed in January. I'm pleased to say that after participating in the County Engineers Association conference, after the board supported the bridge resolution, that Cook County received up to $952,000 towards the replacement of one of the two Flute Reed River bridges on North Road, which is one of the bridges. So thanks to your support of the county's bridge program, we were able to bring in those dollars to complete that project. Next, I'd like to get into this exchange of federal funds for state aid funds agreement that was presented for your consideration. And I'll talk a little bit about how these agreements come about. So in this case, by receiving state aid funds from St. Louis County and trading federal funds towards their project, it eliminates the expense, but more importantly, the time of preparing a lot of the federal level environmental documentation that's associated with these projects. Now in this case, our culvert project on the Gunflint Trail for this summer came in a little bit under estimate, and on the other hand, St. Louis County had a project that came in a little bit over estimate. So they are able to utilize the regional federal funds towards their project and in exchange compensate us for our project estimate, and we'll still be able to deliver both projects. So I believe it's a win-win in that sense. As you're looking at the agreement, you'll notice that originally, we were expecting about $800,000 in federal funds to go towards this Gunflint Trail project, and now our current estimate is far less than that, receiving only $370,000 in return from St. Louis County. Now, one thing that's important to recognize, I don't think I've explained this recently, is that annual federal funds are distributed by a formula in our region. So by reducing the estimate of this project, it is expected that Cook County, through that formula, would be eligible to receive another round of federal funds sooner than what we otherwise would. So it may, at face value, it might seem like we're giving away more than we're receiving, but by the time we get through the annual formula calculation, you will see that it makes us eligible for another federal project in a sooner future year than otherwise. That's a very quick summary of the action before you. I'm happy to answer any questions on this item, or if anyone's interested in a more detailed explanation of the federal funding formula or transportation funding in general, that is something I'd be glad to put together for a future meeting.
Thank you, Kristen. Well, it's great to work with other people, and it's great to work with the federal government. So the dollars more coming in would be 370 or less coming in, do you think? Or is it hard to know because of the formula?
Madam Chair, St. Louis County would transfer $370,000 in state aid funds to Cook County.
Okay, very good. So we'll open it up for questions or comments. Commissioner Mills?
I don't have any questions. Thank you for your work on this.
Well, thank you very much. Some people from Lake County Commissioner said, just wait, her background in business is going to start showing. I think this is an example where you're working for us to save some money. Thank you.
No questions. Thank you for all the work on this to make sure this project gets done.
Thanks, Kristen.
And with that, I would ask for a motion to approve a resolution for this agreement number 1033246 with the Minnesota Department of Transportation as our agent in this fund exchange.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor, show by hands.
Aye.
Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate it all.
My second item, as Administrator Cadwell mentioned, just came up very recently, so thank you for considering the engineering technician vacancy at the Highway Department. As we look at filling this position, some folks might recall, last time we advertised this position was a dual posting for both an engineering supervisor and an engineering technician. That is what the request is from the Highway Department, to advertise it as a dual posting with the position filled. Only one position will be filled, and it would be based on the top applicant's qualifications. Last time we advertised for this position, we did have one candidate who fit the bill for another supervisor for the Highway Department. Unfortunately, he didn't accept the offer. We didn't have anyone who we felt really was ready for that category quite yet, so we looked at filling it as a technician. This other candidate had brought in some bridge inspection experience, which is a resource we're currently lacking, but unfortunately she found another opportunity elsewhere. So I would ask for the board consideration to do a dual posting for both the supervisor and the technician position again, with the hope that we find somebody else to add to the supervisory team at the Highway Department. When we talk about the supervisory team at the Highway Department, there is only one official supervisor for a department of 20-some employees right now, and that would be our accountant. Everyone does a great job from day to day. You've got a group of self-starters up there that I'm very proud of, and with the administrator's leadership and assistance, we're able to make things work, but no doubt in a department of 20-some employees, it would be highly recommended to have a second supervisor if we're able to recruit that position.
Thank you for that information, and hopefully around the bend we will find another qualified person.
So, Madam Chair, we would need a motion to post for the vacancy.
Okay. Motion to do posting for the vacancy.
I so move.
I'll second that.
No further comment or question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have Land Services, Tim Nelson.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Actually, what I have today is I'd submitted a request to consider the addition of another position up at the recycling center. What I'd like to actually do is request that that be tabled. I want to come back after conversing with Brady a little bit and looking at the numbers that I presented and the discussion that this involves with the use of temporary positions over the use of a permanent position. I would like to come back with a bit more of a further in-depth analysis in terms of needs, impact, and all of that. So I just want to go ahead and table this particular item.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And here comes Bill.
Bill. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning, Bill.
Others. Actually, we have a buffet table of items for your consideration this morning. Let's start out with the Matheson Cliff Creek gravel pit. And as you know, we went through that review process in December of 2018. The Planning Commission decided to table the review process for 3 pits, the Nelson Pit at Thompson Creek, the Labota Pit on Arrowhead Trail, and the Matheson Pit on Cliff Creek Highway 61. Part of the issue with the Matheson Pit was the fact that the conditions that were established in 1996 are still in place, and yet during the construction season of 2018, those conditions were not met by Mr. Matheson. He was not available in December. He did fly up from Arizona for the January 16th meeting. A pretty extensive discussion ensued with the concerned property owners and Mr. Matheson, and it came out that the review process was kind of truncated to the point where Mr. Hero, Mike Hero, who was representing the property owners, suggested that we look at 2019 and the conditions with scrutiny and then make a decision in 2019 during the review/renewal process to determine how that pit is operating within its conditions and constraints. So with that, the Planning Commission recommended that the review process of 2018 for the Matheson pit be approved. And so we're left with the two other pits, which we'll be addressing in the forthcoming meetings. So that's it. That doesn't need a motion or anything like that. So the next item would be the Ray Zickrick conditional use permit for a temporary sawmill operation / home business in the FAR 3 zone district. Mr. Zickrick has a sawmill operation that he conducts in the privacy of his own home, which in the FAR 3 zone district is identified as a specific conditional use requirement, a temporary sawmill operation. His intent is not really commercial, it's more private, but he also expects to expand his clientele, do custom milling and that sort of thing. He's got a little shed, an outdoor shed that he'll conduct this operation in. There was really no dissent or concern on behalf of the Planning Commission, so they voted unanimously for the Board of Commissioners to approve, upon their recommendation, the Zickrick Home Business temporary sawmill operation.
Okay, thank you for that, and we see by the Google map where it's located, it's pretty close to Hedstrom's, and the neighbors aren't concerned, they supported it basically. So,
Yep.
okay. All right, we'll open it up for questions or comments. Commissioner DeShaw?
No.
Commissioner Dukert?
No questions.
No.
None here, thank you.
Okay, then with no further concern, then we will ask for a motion to approve the Zickrick request,
So
allowing
moved.
the sawmill operations as a home business.
Second.
No further comments or questions, all in favor? Vote aye.
Aye?
Opposed, same
Thank you.
sign.
Thank you. The next item, another conditional use permit request, which was presented by Cook County on behalf of the Cook County Snowmobile Club. Cook County does have an agreement with the Cook County Snowmobile Club for a maintenance ability on the Whispering Pine plat, which was established by Cook County in 2005. There's a lease agreement, it's termed a special use agreement with the Snowmobile Club and the county to allow perpetual use of that parcel for maintenance. It's at the trailhead of a number of snowmobile trails, very logistically appropriate for access to trails, for grooming, maintenance, and that sort of thing. And this year, the Snowmobile Club came up with the idea of establishing a permanent maintenance building, 2,600 square foot maintenance building on the parcel. And in order to do that, they need a conditional use for a couple of reasons. One is that it's an accessory structure, which is a conditional use permit in the FAR 3 zone district, and also because it is technically county property. So lease agreements aside, and I would defer to County Attorney Hicken on that, the conditional use permit process is effectively to allow the Snowmobile Club to construct a permanent structure with power, heating, and all that to facilitate the maintenance of a pretty valuable recreational resource. And there was little, again, seems to be a pattern here, there was little discussion on this. The Planning Commission was pretty unanimous in their support for it. The county was represented and supports the agreement and the tenure of the Snowmobile Club. They voted unanimously to approve the request and ask that the Board of Commissioners echo that approval.
Okay, thank you. They've been a steady customer for 14 years. Now they'd like more permanency. So we'll open it up for questions or comments. Commissioner Mills?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Bershheim?
Good deal for everyone.
Commissioner Dukert?
Just another example of our highway engineer working with citizens and our planning and zoning, making things possible, so thank you.
I think it's a good thing they don't have to run the groomers back and forth. Leave it up there, so.
Since we seem to have pretty good winter, longer and longer every year, it
A lot of
seems.
winter.
So we'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Any further comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. There you go.
Thank you. And the final item is the Mitt Lake wireless communication tower, which is intended to be integrated into the Armor network. Long story short, the original location was intended to be on Lima Mountain, which is a U.S. Forest Service property. Forest Service objected to that because of aesthetic interference with the boundary waters. Basically, the tower would be seen from various lakes in the boundary waters, and they felt that was a conflict. Fortunately, the county has tax forfeited property on Mitt Lake, adjacent to Mitt Lake, which is out the Ball Club Lake Road. It meets the same criteria of the line of sight requirement for the Armor networking. It was established by Rowan Watkins and the MIS department that that's a viable alternative site. That was agreed and echoed by MnDOT and their involvement. And this effectively represents the last tower in the Armor network in Cook County, which of course is necessary for emergency response and that sort of thing. So it was a good fit and really fortunate that we do have that property available and that it actually has all the topographic requirements of the original Lima Mountain site. The other good thing is that it's probably less visible in this location than it would have been in the Lima Mountain site. So it's kind of a win-win situation. It's, again, going to be under 199 feet, suggesting that it doesn't need lighting and that sort of thing. So we're pretty fortunate that we have this relatively new network established with new towers, and we don't have illumination issues here, which is a big concern for a lot of people. With that, brief discussion ensued. There wasn't a lot of dissent or concern. Basically, recognition that this is a valuable and a necessary tower component, and the Planning Commission approved it unanimously and asked that you, as the Board of Commissioners, approve as well.
Thank you. I appreciate the questionnaire narrative, too. Different questions about, permit use and how it'll be used and lighting. That helps us to look at it. And the map of all the Armor sites all over Minnesota. It's incredible.
It is.
It really is. Okay, so questions or comments to give to Bill, Commissioner Dukirk.
No, we actually didn't have a huge group of people as we usually do when it comes to tower discussions. So this is a good solution that will still work for everyone, and I did present it to the Airport Commission, and they were also in support, since this is obviously much closer to the airport. They needed to be aware of anything that might come up with that, and MnDOT is going to make sure if anything needs to be done with that tower for landing and taking off.
No questions. Thanks for your work.
Commissioner Mills?
I don't have any questions. I did have an opportunity to speak with Rena Rogers about the project and the options, and I'm really grateful for just the sensitivity around the issue with both the boundary waters and neighbors. So, and it's great. It doesn't have to be lit. So, appreciate your work.
Appreciate it. Okay, so we'll need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any further comment or questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and
Thank you.
And thank you for this, too, the updating on the tower as of June 12th, 2018.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Next on our agenda, we have Public Land Surveying System.
Good morning, Madam Chair,
morning.
Commissioners. I am the B team on this, I would just say that. Kyle should have been here, and he's not feeling well today. But we do have Wayne Henschey on hand, who is the expert and the surveyor who's going to be involved in this project. And I think Holly is here from the recorder's office as well. I'm just going to say what the recommendation is and give just a few statements, and then I'm going to turn it over to Wayne to explain what the value of this is and what this project's about. Basically, we're asking to authorize the allocation of $20,000 from the recorder's unallocated fund for the procurement of precise coordinate information for over 1,000, I think it's 1,080 PLSS, which is Public Land Survey System corners, as outlined in the bid proposal, which was in the packet from County Surveyor Wayne Henschey. And just a couple of statements, and before I turn it over to him, the recorder's unallocated fund is, that money comes from fees that happen on, land transactions, like property sales, that sort of thing. And that fee is specifically meant for things like this, that it's money that is to be used for providing land and property information in electronic formats. That's its sole purpose. So this is exactly the kind of project that this fund is meant to fund. And there is adequate funding in that fund for that at this time. The second thing is one of the real challenges that we've had and that we have for homeowners, property owners, and even in our GIS system is we know that a lot of the information that we have is not precise. And we get into issues for our assessors, for property owners. They have to spend a lot of money to go out and have a new survey done. This addresses that issue. It addresses it both from county government costs, and it addresses it as a public service, extreme public service to our property owners. So that is about the extent of what I know. So I'm going to turn the rest of it over to Wayne.
Morning.
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 My name's Henschey, county surveyor, 25 years. We fixed the east end of the county, and we fixed the west end of the county with citizens petitions. What was actually no man's land on the east end of the county, surveyors wouldn't even go there. We've resurveyed 5 townships out there, 2 boundary commissions. We even did a Lake Wobegon. Rhonda Silence, the impertinent reporter from the county newspaper, had a cartoon one time about how in Hovland somebody now had 2 outhouses on their property. In the past, we've been supported by folks like Brady and Carol Gressick, and now we're trying to be supported by Rena and Kyle. And I got to give credit to the county recorder and Holly, because what they're trying to do is move the property layer, the digital property layer in Cook County out of the Stone Age. We're trying to emulate what's now being done in St. Louis County. It's kind of one-stop shopping for a private landowner. They can go to the internet, see their property displayed accurately to probably about a foot. You're asking me to give up about 25 to 30 years of private surveying knowledge. Me and Rick Tofty and MnDOT can provide these over 1,000 coordinates in phase 1. Phase 2, we can probably do it again. This is unheard of because this information is now currently scattered to the 4 corners of the wind. I thank you, Lord. I've been a retired federal surveyor here, county surveyor, private surveyor, and we can now finally get this information to one-stop shopping for owners in Cook County. The government officials can use this. Bill Lane, just sitting here, now can look at the map and go out and say, is this tree on this person's property? Is this easement on their property? how do I go out and look for the corners on my property? Well, we're going to provide that information. We're going to give them the coordinates. Put yourself in a position, you want to go out and find your corners on your property in the summertime. It's a jungle out there. You know? How do you find a little monument that's this high in the summertime? Better yet, how do you find it in the wintertime? With these coordinates that we're going to provide to 1 foot accuracy, you dial it into your GPS and walk to it, spring, summer, or fall.
I would add that Kyle is working on a lot of different mobile devices, or mobile applications for various departments, but also for citizens eventually that can be downloadable, which will make this very easy to do on a phone. And you'll be able to use this new accurate information to do that. So.
One other benefit that it's going to bring the cost of surveys down in the county, because a surveyor from Ely can now just look at the database, dial up the corners, and rather than wandering around the jungle in the summertime, they walk to the corner. That saves days off of a bill for a private owner buying a survey. That's pretty good. Bill Lane and Joel Ruth can go out and determine setbacks. They can determine easement problems. The list goes on and on. We're trying to upgrade the digital property layer in Cook County to what's basically in St. Louis County right now. The Grand Portage Reservation has a version of this, which is to their benefit. They're ahead of us right now. So, I don't know. Got any questions?
Well, thank you for that great presentation. It's amazing what technology can do for all of us, whether it be health or bring us from the Stone Age of our properties up to the present, looking at corners and all that. So the process then, how does the recorder's office, how are they involved besides the assessor's office?
Well, we got, and they and the GIS department are front and center. It's a three-way cooperation. Because, say, if you, let's just do a 4 corners of the box thing. Say this is a 40-acre parcel. What I'm going to provide is the 4 corners of the box. You know, you as a landowner in here won't have to go very far to have a controlling corner for your property. The GIS department is going to register all the surveys that are in here so that we can flesh this out and get all the property lines inside. Now you can go with their GPS to your property corner to a 1-acre parcel. Dusty and Holly, they get to, and they got, this is a big deal. A landowner will go in here and you'll click on here and you'll find my coordinates. But you'll also find, and to preserve good title going forward, they'll find the corner affidavits. The only way that you keep the public land survey solid and not interfered with is just having these corner affidavits, and they have the keys to that. Somebody can dial up, hit this, they get the coordinates, they get the corner affidavits, but then they're also going to scan the surveys that exist. So if they click inside the box, all these surveys will pop up. The map with the aerial and all the surveys that are in that 40, the 4 corners of the box will show up. This is what St. Louis County has. Yeah. We got nothing.
No. Okay, and Holly's showing a map there. Purple is Cook County.
And the dots that you see, the red and blue dots, are the target areas. What we're targeting is I wanted to do more, but they held me to 1,000 corners. We're targeting the private land ownership along in the heavy population centers and the incorporated townships along Lake Superior. Phase 2, we can move inland. But for now, those dots on there are the corners involved.
Well, let's open this up for conversation, comments. Commissioner Mills?
It seems very powerful, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and very exciting. I don't think I have any questions at this time. I read through the packet, and yeah, it's very exciting. Thank you.
Commissioner Bershine?
No, great work. It's going to be of tremendous value and
I think so.
for minimal investment when you look at the
recorder
results
has
and the
been
advantages.
getting this, amassing this fund for years, and this is a perfect use of it.
Definitely.
Great work, thank you.
Commissioner Dukirk?
So I bought a piece of property. It was approved through the recorder's office, title approved, coordinates approved. I wanted to combine the two properties, and that took a trip to Land Services, the IT department, Holly's department, and then a $4,000 survey bill before I could even get the permit to combine my own flippin' property into one piece of property. So Wayne, where were you 3 years ago? I could have used you then.
I had the same issue 20 years ago with Loretta
Yep.
Bloomquist. I had 2 pieces of property, and she insisted that it be incorporated into one piece. That's a different issue. That's something that we.
Well, this will help, though. What you're presenting to us would help. It would be a lot less than me running around this courthouse asking questions and paying a surveyor to get the information. And so I am so excited that this is happening, not as excited as you are, because I am not as deep in it as you are, but this will be huge for serving the public and helping people out and making everything easier. And yes, it was in the middle of winter when it had to be surveyed, and they had to find those little posts from 1961. So it was 3 trips on a 50-mile trip to go get my little points, so everything would be correct. So this is going to be nice, along with our pictometry. I'm really excited about this, so thank you.
To address your point, we need to get the subdivision ordinance changed to address that exact same thing.
You and I have talked about this.
That's where it needs to be done.
Yep.
So in the audience, are we not being heard?
No, I have a comment.
No.
Not allowed, public input not allowed. Okay,
Later.
later. Yeah.
Commissioner DeShaw?
No, I think it's great work, and I see there's no impact to the budget. So there you go.
Motion to approve.
Second? Oh, Myron.
I got you.
You did. You're ready.
Any further comment or questions? All in favor, show hands of sign.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you for the presentation. We will look for good things on our maps.
Well, couldn't do it without
I know.
these folks.
Yes. Okay, so now we're moving on to Brady.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm asking you to approve publishing a notice of a public hearing and set a date. This is for the Department of Employment and Economic Development Small Cities Development Program grant. This is the 3rd one we've done. We did one in 2012, 2014. And the EDA spearheaded these, but it has to be done through the county. So this one was Lutzen. It's for housing and most of these are for housing and small business for rehabs that are needed. And this one, it was lightly used, but they had 248,000 approved, and I think it was about 50 that got spent. But they'll be here to give details of how this worked and why they're ending it at this time. So this is a required public hearing, so I'd ask you to approve. The earliest date we could have that would be, given the public notice times, would be March 12th, 2019 at 10 a.m. in the Commissioners' room. So unless you'd like to adjust the time, I'd ask for approval of that.
Okay. Are we meeting, is that a board day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll need to have a motion on approving this.
So moved.
Second?
Any questions
Cautiously.
or comments to Brady?
And this is, when I say they, it's AUA that actually
AUA.
manages this for us,
Yes.
so they'll be here to talk about it.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further comments, questions? All in favor, show by
Aye.
saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Next, Brady.
The second item is, this is related to the improvement of Highway 61. It's starting this year and going for a couple of years longer. So the state came to us. They've identified a couple of parcels. This is just one of them that Cook County owns that are in the right-of-way or construction zone, and they need that land. So this is a very small parcel that they wish to purchase from us, which they can purchase from us whether we choose or not, but they wish to purchase from us. It's a very small parcel. It's that little triangle below the dental office, actually. Most people are familiar with that. 471 square foot. It's tax forfeit land, and they've assessed it. We've got the assessment report, and they are willing to pay us $1,000 for that piece of land, which is unusable for anything else, and then use that in the improvement of Highway 61. So I'd ask you to approve it as a resolution. I don't have that form here, but it'll basically be the approval as stated here.
Okay. Any questions or comments to Brady for this? Otherwise, we will.
So has the city been involved with this discussion, or the?
Yeah, they have.
Okay.
And actually, we published all of our tax forfeited lands, including this one, as non-conservation, and then giving us the authority to sell that. And the city had that time to comment on it. So this was part of that, and we did that back in September. So it's met all the requirements there.
I just didn't know how that fit in with the redesign plan, and I know that area in particular had some discussion about it, what's going to happen there specifically, what designs are going to be involved or pulled, so I just wanted to make sure they were in the loop. But
So, I know that Mike is aware of that.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we'll hear a resolution to sell the tax forfeited parcel for the assessed value of $1,000 for improvement of Highway 61.
So moved.
A second.
Further questions or comments? Then we'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
And the last item was an addition, asking that the board approve a subordination agreement. So what happens is we've had this septic loan program for a number of years, and we debated, we have a committee, we debated, we decided we would follow what other counties do, and we would record our applications just as another, say, transparency to real estate agents, whatever, because it's actually a special assessment, but at times it becomes an impediment. So in this case, they want to refinance their property, and in order for the bank to give them the loan, they need to be in first position. So it's an application that we recorded, but they recognize that as a lien, and on that recorder's record, they need to be in first place. So their options are to either pay for the entire loan, to take away that, and then they would have to apply again. So in order to be, they would be ahead, we would be behind. So it would have the exact same effect. So I'd ask you to approve this subordination, and our committee's going to look at whether there's any value in even recording these applications, given this has come up a couple of times. So it is, once it's on the taxes, it's a tax assessment. It has the same standing as a lien as all of our taxes. So it's probably not necessary in any case, but ask you to please approve the subordination so they can go ahead with their refinance.
Okay, and we do, on occasion, give loans for septic monies for people.
Yeah, that's what this is. It's actually
Okay.
the Ag BMP, State Agriculture Program, actually provides the loan.
Okay, any comments or questions, Commissioner DeShaw?
Not at this time.
Okay.
No questions.
No, thank you.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the subordination agreement to the subordinate of the county septic loan application for this.
So moved.
Second.
Further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you. That's all I have.
There you are, Brady. Okay. Now we're moving over to Molly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there any specific order you'd like me to address my items? I have 3 items, and I can go in any order you wish. I know
maybe-
that there are a couple members of our revolving loan fund committee here.
Maybe we could do the law clerk first?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So my 2-attorney office is going to be short, 1 attorney for at least a 12-week period coming up here. From May through August, and that conveniently will occur during the summer, which is also a time when law students are looking for law clerk positions. So one way that I intend to fill the gap for work that Assistant County Attorney Brittany Cubes would typically be doing is to hire a summer law clerk. This would be an unpaid position, which is typical these days for the poor law students. They may get, so I'm willing to work with a law student who wants to get, for example, class credit for their experience, or it needs to meet the requirements of a fellowship, which those are common and available to law students who are looking to work in public interest or government jobs, which typically pay much less than private. So I'm putting the job description before the board before I post it as a courtesy. I will be offering some kind of a living expenses stipend to the law student, which will come out of my attorney forfeiture funds. Attorney forfeiture funds are restricted for use to support law enforcement purposes. And this law student would be certified to make court appearances and would be covering our arraignment calendar. So these are folks arrested for violation of the law. So it is a close enough tie to use those funds for the living expenses stipend. Not before the board today, but just as a preview, I'm likely to also need the services this summer of a contracted attorney. There are a couple of retired prosecutors from the St. Louis County Attorney's Office I might call on for some assistance in covering the caseload in Brittany's absence this summer. So happy to take any questions.
Okay. In taking on a interim law clerk, then living accommodations, would you help with that if it's somebody from out of town?
That's what the intent of the living expenses stipend is for, to help them cover the costs of some kind of a rental. And we'll help in any way we can to make connections to different rentals. Obviously, that's an issue for everyone.
And that's from May until?
I ask that they start as early in May as they can, but a lot of these law schools have classes going into like mid-May, so I said start at the latest June 1st, and then expected to work at least halfway through August, because classes usually restart for law students the third week of August.
Okay, so we'll open up for questions or comments. Commissioner Mills?
No, thank you.
Opportune time to get an intern. Lucky in that. Good plan.
Commissioner Dukirk?
No questions.
Commissioner DeShawn?
No question.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second?
No further comments or questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So I don't know the next two, Molly, it's up to you how you want to approach those.
So I can do I'm doing like a 20-minute mini training on open meeting law. That includes a PowerPoint, and 20 minutes should be enough time for me to get through that and address any questions from the commissioners. The other item is going to require a closed session of the board for attorney-client privilege, or I'm going to recommend that the board make a motion to close the meeting. It involves delinquency of the revolving loan fund, and we have committee members here, I think, who are interested in the outcome and here to maybe answer any questions that me or Brady can't answer. So I would suggest that we go forward first with the revolving loan fund delinquency.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
May I suggest, usually when we do a closed session, we shuffle everybody out of the room. Maybe we could go to the ITV room so we don't have to shut the camera off and try to restart it and get it to record, and that room is private. Then they can all hang out in here.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, that would be our recommendation if we get to that point.
And just to feed off of that recommendation, I would also further recommend that if we are going to, I thought that we could just stop the recording and then restart it, because for the public here, the attorney-client privilege closed sessions should not be recorded. We can't stop and restart it. So we have to move, but our regularly scheduled board meeting is noticed for this room. So my suggestion is that maybe Ms. Zimmer or somebody else can put a sign on the doors, just letting the public know who are coming for the meeting that we're across the hall for a closed session and we'll return when the meeting opens again. So, and look, it's been done. There you go. Okay, so I just want to briefly introduce this topic and give some information before I recommend that we close the meeting. The revolving loan fund made a loan to Larson Brothers of Grand Marais LLC back in 2008. The amount of that loan was $75,000, and it was secured with a promissory note and a mortgage on a personal residence. That is no longer a typical practice of the revolving loan fund to accept a mortgage on a personal residence, but in this case it is how the loan was secured. The revolving loan fund, just as a general introduction for folks who don't know, was, I think Mr. Greenwood could probably best describe the history of it, but it's a bank of money that came from the legislature originally and is given to counties to help support local businesses who are likely to employ and maintain employment for residents. It's meant as a bridge loan so that the gap between bank financing and what it takes to start or maintain a business can be made up for by revolving loan funds. So typically the standards are lower. We don't require as much of a borrower as a bank would, and that's intentional. Those funds are meant to be more accessible. But it doesn't always go great. We have, I know Hal would tell you that we have an excellent record as far as collecting on those loans, and this rarely happens. But we are now in the situation where this loan specifically has been delinquent since September 2016. We've done everything we can to work with the borrowers to come up with an arrangement that they pay the loan. We came to the board fall of last year with an offer. Evelyn Larson had offered a piece of property that's worth approximately $45,000 in exchange for forgiveness of the balance of the loan. This board asked the committee to go back and find some better solutions. So we're back here today with some options for the board to consider. The first is to foreclose on that home mortgage. Well, the first is to do nothing and allow the delinquency to just remain and keep making requests that the borrower pay. But I'm not hopeful that that would happen without any further action. The second option would be to foreclose on the home mortgage, which is a personal residence here in the city of Grand Marais where people are living. And the third option is to accept a new proposal from Larson Brothers and from Evelyn Larson, which includes both a parcel of land and a continuing obligation to pay $10,000. That continue, so we would agree to amend the terms of the original promissory note to make the principal $10,000. We'd give 10 years to repay that $10,000. And in addition to the mortgage on the home securing that $10,000, Evelyn Larson would give her personal guarantee. So accepting that proposal would mean that the county follows through with all the conveyancing documents for the deed of the property and loan documents, and agrees to reduce the amount of the loan to $10,000, waiving penalties and fees. So to address any questions that the board has about what legal risks and attendant concerns there would be with the potential litigation with the foreclosure of the note and the mortgage, I would suggest that the board make a motion to close this meeting for attorney-client privilege. I'm not sure if, and that would mean excluding everyone who is not a county official or county employee from the discussion. As far as the order that you want to do these things, if you also want input from Brady and from the committee members, I don't know if you'd like that before or after the attorney advice. That's up to yourself, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So then we're going to close this session.
It requires a motion.
Yes.
It requires a second and a vote.
Yes.
And it's recommended that you state the purpose for closing the loan, or sorry, closing the meeting in the motion, and refer specifically to the item to be discussed and the risk of potential litigation.
Okay. So we'll need a motion.
Just
to.
Question
Yes.
two. There is an option to have a discussion with the revolving loan members prior to going to closed session.
Or after.
Or after, and so I guess I would propose the board's desire to do it before or after.
I should also add, Commissioner Bersheim and Madam Chair, that any action that the board takes as a result of this discussion needs to be taken in an open meeting, so members of the public who are interested in knowing the result could stick around until we return, and that action and any discussion would be in front of, in an open meeting.
Okay. So we need a motion
To close the
to
open.
close the present board meeting, do we say?
Motion to close the board meeting to have consultation in private with our county attorney about the Larson Brother revolving loan.
So we
Does that
have a
cover it all,
motion?
Molly?
And potential litigation related.
And potential litigation.
Okay. Okay, so we have that motion?
Support.
Okay. Any further comments or questions?
I think before we close the meeting, I would like to hear if there's any input from the revolving loan committee.
I'd like to have that discussion with them after we have our attorney consultation.
Oh, because we're not going to take any action until after that anyways.
Right.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
It took me a minute to.
I was watching you calculate.
We have a motion and a second. Anything else to discuss? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And by opposed, same sign.
Can you bring the memorandum, the attorney-client privilege memorandum?
We're just going to do something for 2 doors of the commissioner's room, and then we'll take them down.
What you mentioned, the surveyor presented that thing for, he wants to get everything computerized so that landowners can get on a computer screen and find the 4 corners of their property. And in addition, other people who need that information. Where is the county, where does that end, where does private ownership end? That's $25,000. Now, from the basis of his presentation, it would be interesting to know what percentage of land was actually percentage of the benefit of the private landowner, and then the benefits of the private.
That's how you got to know it. I was a kid there, he was chasing down Inwood Avenue. They gave me our first beat, it was down on Skid Row.
I mean, that was the question that I wanted to ask. Of course, that was. I don't, but
Oh, he was a good
to show that we have issues.
And it was also where most of the police parked. And there was some sort of connection that well, often 5 or 6 police cars parked outside there. Yeah, restaurant inside there, like, but it was right across the street. Emerson School I went to for 9 years. So it was. That's where kids can.
Well, it became apparent to me also in a number of things here, that a lot of these decisions are arrived.
They ran a lot of the bars and restaurants along in
The decisions are made before they ever get to this.
Regular gambling was open, like
Elmer's
Children's Store.
Nobody raises
Gambling on the.
Nobody says, what's our desirability?
Counter, but it was all very well managed. The street was relatively safe. There was always police around. I lived there for until I was 14 years old, which is right by Loring Park. It was, rough neighborhood in the summer. They beat up a couple times, threatened, but a few things like that. Robbed. No big deals. Just probably growing up. Probably growing up in Minneapolis. But it was the real Skid Row was 12 blocks away. Washington, where the big development, the first Federal Reserve Bank, the post office, all that part was Skid Row.
Liability insurance.
Because there was the Virgin Falls, and there was the big Pioneer Squares, and there were always dozens of basically
Molly Dickin comes here, you should ask her.
Even
That's a
it hasn't changed
question.
much since 1950.
The question came up about personal liability for an intern who comes to the summer, screws up. Yeah, well, that's a question from Molly Dickin. When she comes in the room, you ought to get up and answer.
That's quite kind of personal.
Before she came on.
These signs that we.
Oh.
I was going to tell you.
Story level. If
they get like, if they get too, because Travis does it, and then she brings it over to the auditor's office, like,
very well.
Great. There's this order of procedure here.
I started very little when I was a teacher.
When are they gonna discuss actual open meetings, took over some space here, past,
That's next Sunday.
35 years.
But we aren't allowed to. Yeah, okay.
The only public input is that during that thing, you get 5 minutes.
Inside the RBC, so there's a group.
If It's so wrong. I mean, this is not democracy, and you can't speak to, I can't speak to the surveyors after they were approved it.
That's why if you want to know what is happening, you can get an agenda and you can make the, ask your questions for the commissioners or anybody that's on the agenda. But during the meeting, the public is not allowed to.
But if on the agenda it says surveyor, you know, I don't know what he's proposing.
First stock purchase.
It's just, it's a dog and pony show right now, really.
Well, that's what the packet. So my God, you saw my packet was this thing this week.
Oh.
All the
I
didn't
short it.
I was long.
No, I
90% of the time, all the information is in the
And
packet.
that, we need to sign up with her?
Yes.
Okay. And then we come by and pick it up sometime during the week before the meeting, or?
Yep. Usually it's ready the Thursday before a Tuesday meeting.
Okay.
Charles Stenby,
And
he
they go to the
became mayor of Minneapolis.
Well, it's done in the administrator's office, but she brings them over to me
In the internal
with
affairs.
the whole packets.
And boy, there was
They have names
gamblers
on them,
and
so
back when
I said Arvis is over
It was
here.
awful. And we cleaned it all up. And
Okay.
the chief and the
That's just
assistant
what-
chief
Boy.
had a bank account.
I'm putting on some time, and I don't.
We made him pay it back. We
You
didn't
can
to
have
pay
the
me,
questions
so-
emailed to you.
End of the
The
day.
problem is that sometimes they get mailed,
George
maybe on Friday.
Ryan, Ed Ryan.
And you don't get it until, right, so that's why.
When I lived on Lake Erie, we lived right back, but he and my dad were on the railroad division in World War I, and they were both wounded. My dad was wounded twice.
I wonder
and went
when they
back.
changed from being able to
And
communicate.
my dad was head of the criminal
Because you
division
used to
in the
say,
Criminal
why
Revenue
it's been
Service
like
in Washington DC.
Well, who I wonder
So,
was
I grew up
how
with
were
all,
they-
hearing all about Kid Can,
Who made the
Tommy
motion?
Banks, and.
It would be good
so
to go
then
back in the minutes and see
I-
who made the motion that no
I was
longer
tried to
will
play
the
football
public
for
be able to
Minnesota, and
communicate.
I worked out with
The
the Bombers.
taxpayers,
and
which
they
ones
don't
were
You know, I
paid.
kind of
Then
get,
the Korean
I mean,
War
this
broke
could
out,
take
and
all day.
I joined the Naval
If
Reserve.
you were
and this is
constantly
all
being
on the book
interrupted.
now. And I thought, well, it'll be a year before,
Address
10 days
issues,
later, boom,
which
I'm in
sometimes
Great Lakes
frustrates
Naval
me
Training
because
Station.
they'll
And for
make
some
a
reason,
decision
probably
when I know we
because of my
discussed 3 months
sister,
ago, and they're like,
who was a
"Oh, I don't remember
secretary
that."
to one of the famous admirals in the Navy. She was a Navy
Yeah.
civil service person,
That's something
very high up.
specific.
And
You know, you're not
they picked
rambling,
me
you
up
just
to
want
go
to know, does
to
this
Naval
include private
Intelligence.
property
And
owners?
so then I went to a crash course in Annapolis, and then I went to
The
Georgetown
40,
University's.
yeah.
I didn't get a
I know
degree, it was
the
just a crash
ARDC
course
is
in
also
foreign
working
service.
on
And
the
then
surveying
my first
of county
destination
private,
was Moscow.
public
The
lands.
American Embassy. I got
Well,
pictures
it
of
sounds like a fabulous system. I'm not against at all what he's doing. I'm just wondering, why does the county
Yes,
need to
well, we
pay out
did remember,
$25,000?
the first thing was
when it's
Elizabeth Woods,
benefiting
who
these
was
private
at Carleton
landowners?
College.
I mean, I would
Was
think
a
a
linguistic
prorated amount
expert
should
on
be
memory
maybe
for the
assessed to each
CIA.
individual
And
private
Humphrey, that
landowner.
was Humphrey's main thing, was remembering everybody. And I,
Well, the
even
point
at
is,
my
this
age, I
system
think I got a pretty good
re-identifies
recall
where the
because I
markets
know
are,
I
as he
can
pointed out, which
associate
is entirely
an
valid
event
in the
with
summer when everything's
what
overgrown.
somebody's talking to me
Good luck
about.
to you,
So
you
it's
know?
worked-
So,
worked well for me, it's still
you
pretty
know,
good to
it's
me.
all valid,
And
it's
the
a
reason
good
I'm
program,
staying
it sounds
active, to
great.
be
What
honest
I'm
with you, is
always
just don't wanna
concerned
lay
with is,
sit in the
what
couch
is
and
the
watch
county
TV.
paying for
Right.
it?
Keep
Where,
my mind
can we
going.
save money somewhere? I mean,
Thanks to guys like this, they help.
Got one short Humphrey story. I just heard today, they're talking about high-speed transport again, high-speed planes, you know, the silent boom issue.
Saving money, you're
How many planes
It
Where's
would
they
seem,
saving money?
it would seem to me with a 5 point something tax levy, they should be asking themselves, how can we save money here?
Well, his
Can we have lunch Sunday?
staff
so I
had
can
warned
start
him
with
that
you?
I would
I just
probably
would love
come
for
and
you
say
to
something. I
learn
said,
some more
"I
information
really
from
will."
you.
I want
I learned from
I
you.
want you to know, for many years I've always loved your advice. When Tyler came to me with that paper.
And it's not that complicated, and when I was up there last week, they were all sitting around in the meeting area watching
Well,
television.
thank you, but I have a list of things I think,
don't know the answer to this, you've got Al would know the answer.
I'd be glad to. I'd love
So,
to do that.
I'll find a day that works for you.
You know, my hearing isn't so good.
It's not.
Well, now they've got, so someone's walking alongside.
People walking outside in the middle of this time. And I was chairman of the Peace Forum, I mean, they had me, CIA, had me identified. I was the chairman of the Mennonite Peace Forum in the late 60s.
Oh my gosh.
Which was just a study group, went to these demonstrations and such, you know, but it was,
You know who's joining the Peace Corps for May? Bill Hansen in May. This was Cindy's idea. He used me as a reference, and I said, no, I don't always agree with him, but I think his credibility, his dad, Frank, was a good friend of mine.
What department are you?
I know I'll use it for winter.
Because I'm thinking, when we were today, write that in the highway department.
He's talking about being a guitar with, to be able to.
Yeah, I didn't hear.
Because you're Kennedy's husband.
So much too much shit that I'm not gonna get. They're talking, so I was curious.
Yeah. And then he had Alzheimer's.
Yes, and they're
Relaxed,
you know,
I went to visit him in the hospital.
I haven't heard anybody say, please speak up, but
Didn't know
it's
who
so
I
like
was,
this.
and he said, I'm
Jenny,
very
we are.
happy.
I know,
Yeah,
we are all
he was there
sweet.
for 5 years.
Mike.
And just, most people don't last that long.
Yeah, like I got.
But he did.
Yeah.
But Schreiber, he was a hell of a good guy.
Humphrey spoke about this before.
Yes, he did. He was the author of it.
When I was a student, in fact, I was thinking, I read all this stuff in the graduate program.
Oh, yeah, so that's where I
Talked to
really
Professor
get
McGowan, and
the big gist of it, so
we
I was
said,
just like, I wondered.
the vice president's.
That was the. And then the men, and I was, and then that was making noise, and I'm like, so, I just was wondering, not such a. I usually try. Yeah, I still right here, that just. Whatever my hearing aids say, they just go. Right. Well, you know, I don't have to be. Once you find out. Yeah, see, and I've got to summarize everything, so to Val.
Everybody loved him. Maybe kids, they said, well, we never had teachers.
I take notes from my own.
Yeah, because I want to learn. What did I write? Midst of, here. I take more notes than I need.
Oh, here it is. For 4 years.
Agenda.
Even though I didn't start in that, I did 2 years of engineering. But it was very easy to switch.
I pretty much just read it.
It's all right, I'm just here to listen.
You know, Bob Nagy, Junior, Norman DeChampion died Saturday. He do a great job. He was so humble.
Some people need to get back to it.
And he had cancer and
I'm sure they do.
but he did. This was the second heart attack he had. He had one when he was moose hunting 10 years ago. And then he went back and they put him on Xarelto.
They never use the word crime
Every time I bumped
Is it
something.
crime line?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what it looked like on the map.
Listen, this
but-
guy's got a great
Yeah.
sense of, he's smarter, you
And
know.
nobody asked.
Got a hell of a good sense of humor.
I have the same frustration during the meeting.
Well, when he gets
I'm
over
like,
explaining.
usually I have my work packet, and I write out my questions, I have questions, this, and this, and then I wait to see. And 90% of the time, questions aren't asked.
Right, like using an automated answering service on a credit card.
Although I will say,
Never have
I
a
have,
question.
I have told Rita
They were
Rogers,
like 10,000 off on their last year's.
99% of the time, if I do that, if I write out my questions, and she's on, give me a presentation, 99% of the time, she will answer every one of my questions during the presentation.
They're counting, yeah, I know, they're counting is.
Wow.
They got
So-
different.
And I've got the whole name tag, Bill Ray, and I've got him and said, Eddie, you didn't answer my
Well, actually, agencies are part of the reporting process. The speakers don't like it. Come back.
I have no authority, I have no Yes.
Easy to do.
Well, I was actually board chair. I know she's actually building a brand new. Thank you for being here.
Isn't that something?
Well, I think I know, but I'm actually a bit funny, it's, I'm on the
My rationale behind doing what I'm doing is I want to find out.
I don't sit next, real close to it, it's not right in front of me. But I watched the meeting later and it was, so I don't know if you're better fixated on
That means they can do anything.
city or?
Forget they can take votes.
Perhaps just even as something as simple as turning the whole busy up just a notch.
And that's why I'm trying to do this.
Technology.
And
No, well, I have to do as much as
couldn't find a
busy.
vote.
Busy up. So,
Well, it's,
Oh, she's doing it to save her kids. If this is all over, you don't have much drugs in your life and get crummy ideas. You should go out with that patio and have steak fries. Everybody come to it. Nobody does it. Sure. Bruce tried to help. They didn't show up, he had the manager.
but when they're like heading off to college, she'll get them.
So I have a 2-year-old
that needs to get out of diapers.
being angry with them. Yes.
Yeah, well, I know we went to France, and then.
Yeah, Sue just had a.
No, I didn't know you might laugh, that's why he gave me a different project to work on.
Right.
I have a 4 and a 2-year-old.
Okay.
Oh, my dear. Yeah, Or 2 is what I heard.
I have a long time, it's 30 years,
And
but
I was
he
cutting it pieces
Family.
because I
Absolutely wild.
what that meant.
Crazy.
I think
Every time you look at that coat, how crazy you are.
And then once you're in the work environment, I'll turn on your stop, help me get that, and then we can make a change to the picture fine. And then we send that back. She was like, okay, so that's what they do, they need to change the entire story. But now I think that's the rest of the budget, like I said, I read it.
Otherwise,
No, I had 6 months of time, and I have followed up over yesterday afternoon, and posted, and that's what sounded. I can, so open up the minutes, like, I did it down, version, and then turn on your track changes, so you can track the changes, and show her. You're supposed to do it at 5. So you can show her the format that needs to be changed, and then say that, and then we email back to her and change it.
You wear glasses?
Just before the meeting started, I said, oh, we need to finish this. Yeah, that's fine, I don't see her, I'm following with her, and so next week. So that should give you, but he's gone the next week. Yeah, well, if I could touch you. I had cataracts, so yeah, something else. Yeah, that's really great.
Dr. Weiss, Dr. Weiss,
Yes, that's who I have.
he's a great guy, his dad was a judge.
I don't get that. She said,
But
what's the?
he got me in there.
I helped Jeff, do the agenda, and then the packets go to Stacy, and then Stacy puts them back.
I mean, well, I wondered if I could see ahead of time some of the material that they've based their decisions on.
That was telling her about our dance. People that go in their eyes, and I said, I wanted to pack.
Everybody, he wasn't nervous to do that. Everybody gets it, including dogs and cats.
Which is amazing, you know, what amazing me is,
how our clear colors. And they're talking about a revolving county.
Are you wanting the full packet or just the agenda?
What's the perception? It was because I look at the agenda, it'll say like survey. I
Stacy,
don't know what
get all that Halo
stuff.
Carol, that's, and I would just be one good copy.
I don't understand why they're out there when they're talking about county money. And Molly Higgins,
At our next board meeting, I'll have a packet ready for
attorney
you.
client,
And
so
then Stacy like.
are the Larson brothers her clients?
Wonderful. No, the county is her client. And so she's advising the county of what their legal obligations or ramifications might be if they.
So why
A, B, or
are
C.
they That's
Well, I always want to understand about that attorney-client privilege. I don't know about that. Mike, do you know about people?
It's a matter that the attorney can say things and listen to things that are private,
And do you want to
basically.
pick yours up
That's
here? So
the
that
way
the other
it
side,
is.
which would be the other side, would be the Larson family.
Well, yeah, but shouldn't the Larson family have their attorney back?
Maybe so those are mailed in. Well, they're not in Friday morning.
I know that. I'm
So maybe the Larson family has an
Is-
attorney. I don't know.
It's the problem, we have an advocacy system from two sides, it's a competition. They want to keep their practice secret, and the county wants to keep its practice secret, so they finally, they have to eventually share the information, but the county has the right to prepare a
And you want the full
reasonable
packet or just
case.
the main agenda?
The Larson
Oh, I
family has the right
understand
to.
that, I understand that, but why aren't they in private then? Because this is all county money. County, do we have to pay back the 75,000?
Well, that's the kind of confidential advice that the attorney discusses to whether, whether you, like, okay, you owe me $50,000. You say, I'm really strapped, Mike, but, I'll pay this to you over the next 5 years, so it'll be $25,000 right now. Well, it's one of those things, you say, well, I don't really think they're gonna pay me back the $50,000 ever. I'm gonna do better to get $25,000 now. And that's the kind of thing she's advising as to whether.
Oh, I understand that.
And it's just a matter, they need to discuss that with her, to understand what her interpretation of the law is. The law is never simple on things like this. It's, because it's, the county is not gonna. Okay, if it comes out that they accept 40,000 on the loan, this should be 70,000 or something, okay, we're gonna have.
We have a big job, April.
You're not gonna be real happy if they're with a buyout. But, to foreclose on the property that are security, you're taking Brian Larson's. And that's not real nice.
I think part of the issue now is that we, sitting here, have questions, we have concerns this way and this way and this way. And in there, they're talking about the issues.
Right.
They're gonna come back here and we're never going to know the background. And that's what's frustrating, is that, how am I gonna learn?
I don't understand why, I still don't understand. I understand if Molly Hicken and Joe Wolf is the other attorney, and they can talk back and forth, and that can be, privileged. But when you have the county attorney saying, this is what the Larson brothers want to do, or whatever, and she's working for the county, she's not working for them. So if they are going to come to an agreement, they should have their own attorney. Because I consider this a conflict of interest.
Well, they're not gonna come to an agreement from what's happening now.
Right.
They gotta stop and people, these guys are representing the real.
Yeah.
And they have another.
I see what's going on, and I get
And
damn
they
mad.
have a recommendation.
Not good for your heart.
It's a complicated issue.
You're not gonna believe it.
There's not a right or a wrong in the end.
What, did somebody open a window in here? Kinda hungry now. Motion to reopen the commissioner meeting.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So we had,
You're missing a commissioner.
Yep.
Okay.
There's enough, there's a quorum.
He'll be back.
we had lengthy discussion. We have some options, so we'll open it up for some of our debate in terms of discussing this request. Anyone can just start speaking. I won't acknowledge you. So whoever wants to start, is that okay?
You might want to wait for Commissioner Bershon to
Okay.
come back, just because he has a lot of the background.
We will do that.
You could also invite your committee members to come forward if you have any input.
Yeah, and I guess I would just say right off that basically what we're weighing is the risk of public funds versus putting a foreclosure on somebody's home in our community, and so that's kind of the tough decision that we're weighing. As a super brief summary.
So we've opened it up for discussion, Commissioner Bershheim,
Okay, thank you.
and we will proceed with whomever would like to discuss different points. We have three different options.
Well, and I would also love to hear perspective of the committee, or of revolving loan fund committee.
Can you hear me okay?
If you could use the microphone for everybody, though, for the camera's sake. And yes, I would like to hear you better.
Come closer.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, valued and esteemed staff, good morning.
Good morning.
What I'd like to do is spend just a couple of minutes to give you background on revolving loan fund. 3 minutes. One, I think you might be interested in where the numbers.
I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself too?
Oh, sorry, Scott Harrison, EDA revolving loan fund, et cetera. The origin of the funds for the revolving loan fund came from 4 different deed grants, one of which I was directly involved in getting for Charlie Skinner in 1988. But the 4 of those were Hedstrom Lumber, which was a deed loan, it was a grant to the city. The repayment came back to the city from Hedstrom's, and that was the original one for the revolving loan fund. So it was Hedstrom's, the Village Inn, which was Bob Ryan back then, Caribou Highlands now, Lutzen Mountains, which was Skinner, the one that I helped get, and the Super 8 for Barney Pete's project. It was a total grants from deed, grants to the city, lent out, paid back in, captured for a revolving loan fund, just over $800,000. That's the origin. 85 to 91, those 4 came in. In aggregate, the amount that's been lent out is about $5.3 million in aggregate. There are about $1.6 million in receivables right now, loans out. There's about $181,000 of cash available for additional loans, and the charge-off rate is around 3%, which my banker friend back there would tell you, given the risk level that we take and need to take to make some of these loans happen, is very fine, 3% charge-off rate. So let me move on to where we are. The issues with foreclosing, besides the PR issue, is, and Molly, please help me if I go sideways here, but you'd have a foreclosure measure which would involve an outside attorney. It would take 60, 90 days, 120 days for judicial hearing, which would end up being a sheriff's auction. And then you would have to bid in as a second mortgage holder. You'd have to take out the first mortgage holder, which would require considerable funds from the revolving loan fund and might keep us from being able to lend out anything else. Once you got the title, which could be 60, 90, 120 days, then you'd have the problems of the quality of what it looked like inside. You'd have security issues, you'd have tax issues, you'd have insurance issues, and then you'd have to list it for sale, and you might have significant remodeling money involved. I don't think anybody wants to go there. I'll just tell you what my thoughts are. What we have in front of us, we think is the best that we're going to be able to do, which is the piece of land to be conveyed to the revolving loan fund and a $10,000 note guaranteed by Evelyn. We've been at this for pretty near a year, and that is our recommendation from the loan fund to bless this third option.
The only, I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, the only slight correction I would have to make is that the attorney that I've talked with, who's an extremely experienced and well thought of collections attorney from the Twin Cities, is that in the least, if everything went perfectly smoothly with the foreclosure action, it would be 10 months minimum. 10 months minimum to get from start to finish, and that's just so that we have a judgment in hand and can proceed to, try to sell the property. He said, and that's if your attorney doesn't have anything else to do.
Well, that's even worse than I thought.
Yeah, it's at a minimum 10 months.
Okay. Any thoughts, comments, what we discussed?
Well, I guess I'll comment, serving on the fund. As Mr. Harrison mentioned, we've been working on this for some time, and there's been a lot of back and forth, and I'd like to give Hal credit, I think, personally, for working with the family on this on a personal basis and trying to negotiate the best thing. And so there's been some back and forth discussions, and I think it came up, where have we tried hard enough? Have we tried hard enough? And I think we're at a point where, this is going to be it, or it's the option of foreclosure. And I really want to thank Hal for his work, and Scott and all those on the committee. A lot of work has been put into this, and looking at it as a risk management issue. I think part of that risk management is, how we are perceived in the community as well, and how we do business, and we're fair, and I think that's something that we have to consider as well. So I definitely would support, going with option 3.
I'm sorry, Myron, I did not hear your last 3 words, but...
I support option 3 as a member of the committee and as a commissioner.
And is that what Scott, is that the one?
Yes.
Is that option 3? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I guess-
Yes. I'm sorry. Where do I have to be for you?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Yes, I couldn't hear the other thing.
Thank you.
Well, I have I have a problem with this, the precedent this will set for people repaying and not being able to pay back their revolving loan funds. And the other problem I got is, why isn't the Larson brothers here talking to us? Why aren't they here talking with us? I have I'll pass for the moment.
Along the lines of Commissioner DeShaw, I would like to foreclose to send a message, but that doesn't put money in the bank. So that is not the best solution in this situation, and sometimes sending a message isn't the right thing to do. It's, So I also would go for option 3. And my reasoning for that is the best for the Larson family and for the county, and to get money back in, so that if another person in our community wants to have money to expand their business, it will be available to do it. And option 3 is going to be a lot faster than foreclosure and possibly throwing a family out on the street, which is not what we want to do. Sending a message or not, that's not what we want to do. So I'm leaning towards option 3 also.
I would like to say another thing. I remember, I think it was during my first year as commissioner, maybe last year, the place right up here, the education place, came in here and wanted us to forgive their loan. It wasn't much, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. And at that time, I said the same thing. You know, are we setting a precedent here? And apparently we are. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with foreclosing on someone, but, you know, if I wouldn't have brought this up last fall at the meeting, would it have come up yet? Probably not. You know, when's enough enough? That's my...
Madam,
Yes.
the only thing I would add is, to my knowledge, I haven't studied it, but I'm pretty sure this is the only collateral that is someone's home since the beginning of the fund. I'd have to look at it to be sure, but I'm sure there's none others right now. And I think the committee is looking real hard at not doing that again. Maybe putting it into the guidelines even, coming back to you with that, so we're considering that. So I don't think it would be the same precedent. I get some precedent, but it wouldn't be the same situation.
And higher ed paid off their loan, they just avoided finance charges, right?
No. We forgave $5,200 or something. I believe.
So in regards to the revolving loan fund, would that be a consideration for you to consider the future?
Yes, I think that's appropriate, a position we don't want to be in. The combination, I think, for the revolving loan fund is the combination of the legal problems and cost involved, the economic issues, which would deplete our fund, and the PR is just overwhelmingly in favor of number 3, option 3. Sorry to be here. It hasn't happened very often,
Right.
3% of the time, but that's where we are.
Right, right. Well,
Well, I'll make a motion to take option 3 based on the revolving loan committee's recommendation, and just from what our discussion held, I recognize Commissioner DeShaw's frustration with the situation and echo it. I think moving forward, this is our best option.
Support.
Madam Chair?
yes.
And Commissioner Mills, may I suggest an amendment to your motion? If the motion can use the language that it's the board's intent to accept the proposal that Larson Brothers has brought forward to settle the debt, and you may or may not want to include delegating signature authority to Auditor Powers to sign any conveyancing documents and loan agreements that come out of the settlement proposal. If you leave out the delegation, then those agreements will come back before the board.
I'm fine with amending that and assigning delegation to Brady. And I also want to emphasize just the title search and the O&E, but that's within that. So.
And I support that amendment.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott. And Hal.
Thanks, Hal.
So Molly, time-wise, would you like to do the open meeting law now, or we do have one more item to discuss is the YMCA. So what is the time frame for you? And we do have a couple folks here.
Yeah, I think Mr. Cadwell would suggest that we go forward with the YMCA, and that's fine
Okay.
with me.
Okay,
I
thank you.
could also use a really quick break before we do the open
Okay.
meeting law.
Okay.
Madam Chair, did you want to take a break now, or do you want to do it after I cover these 3 items?
Are we okay with covering? Okay, yes, go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. Madam Chair, Commissioners, there are 3 items related to the YMCA. I'm bringing them forward because Maintenance Director Brian Silence is busier needing to do actual things with snow falling and taking care of things, so I'm presenting these on his behalf. There were several good questions brought up during public comment today that need to be addressed, and I'm going to address them generally and hope that satisfies some of the answers. The first comment brought up by Ms. Thompson was related to bringing forward a request for an architectural review and bringing forward a request for a change to a space without having that review already done yet. And that's a very good question. The answer to that question is those are 2 very separate spaces. And the review, the architectural review, is focusing primarily on the air handling systems and the drain and the mechanical systems related to the locker rooms and the pool. The actual use of space is something that would be a much longer-term project and is really kind of beyond the scope of what we're planning on doing with the architectural review. 80% of the proposed architectural review is to review air handling systems, review the plans of the as-built drawings, and actually obtain plans of the as-built drawings so we actually know the components and the wiring. To this point, every time Brian needs to work with Johnson Controls or some other contractor on an issue related to the air handling system, we do not have good as-built drawings for that building. And I would recommend that part of getting that information would be something we would ask Nancy Schultz with CRBPS to work with Brady and Attorney Hicken to make sure that we got all the deliverables at the end of that project that we should have from the contractors, and if not, to get those deliverables so that we have the owner's manual for the building, if you will. Right now, every time they look at an air handling system, they don't have a schematic plan, set of plans that tells them how it's supposed to be working, so they don't know if it's working right or not working right. That's one of the primary issues. That issue doesn't affect the daycare space. The 3 rooms that have been repurposed for daycare spaces are outside of that zone of concern, which is why we are bringing both of these forward at the same time. The occupancy of the daycare, the 3 daycare spaces, with this proposal, with the change in the proximity of restroom facilities, would allow the occupancy at the daycare and the licensing to go about 20 more children total, so from 40, 41, 42 to 61, 62, somewhere in that range. The actual square footage carved out for the use of the bathroom will affect that by 1 or 2 at some point. But as with daycare being the situation and the concern that it is in our community, adding 20 additional spaces of capacity within a state licensed facility seems like a good option. IRRR came up last year when we were looking at this project. We would have done this project last year, but the timing of getting grant funds just didn't match with the timing of having Matt Gray here working with the school. Matt Gray was here, and they put together an estimate, a change order, to put the same bathroom in for us, and their estimate was $96,000. The current quote that we have is $99,000 to provide the same work. The additional $25,000 or $26,000 that would fall back to us as the building owner related to air handling system, mechanical connections, and sprinkler system revisions, we would have had in the other situation as well. And last fall, as we were talking about this project, we knew that the county would have some matching funds related to the 70 or 80 or, at this point, $100,000 worth of grant funds that have been committed towards this project. It is our belief that this is a good quote, that this is a manageable project, that it's a deliverable project in the very near future, that it's a good use of funds and it's a good partnership. with the granting agencies. The question related to cost per square foot is really taken out of context, because if you'll ask any contractor, bathrooms, mechanical, plumbing are much higher. Renovating your home bathroom is much higher than the average cost per square foot. So the primary problem with this issue is, of course, it's a state-certified daycare. It's a commercial space. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing plans all need to be set, determined, drawn up, and certified with the state before it can go forward, and then they need to be inspected as they're done. We wanted to do it, like I said, last year while the school project was underway and there were contractors in the area. As it turned out, we've got a quote to do it for the same price that we were given last year. So all of those questions were very good questions. All of those concerns are very good concerns, and you need to understand them in the scope as we look at each of these pieces. The investigatory architectural review is about us thinking about the long-term viability. I think over the last couple of weeks, I'm not sure if all the commissioners are aware, I know that some of you are, that we've had a failure or a compromise in the air handling system that has caused a compromise in the ceiling structure, and the jacuzzi at the pool has been closed now for a little over a week, and it will be for another several weeks until those systems can be fixed. Short-term fix, we're going to get them done. Long-term fix, we need to take a look at the best way to solve it so that we don't continue to have recurring issues with those systems. So we've had this estimate for a while. I think I got it back in September or October, and we've been working with the local YMCA board, Duluth YMCA, to take a look at the contracts that we have, the relationships that we have, the responsibilities that we have towards each other, and just making sure that we are doing the best possible thing for the long-term sustainability of that space. And these recommendations are in accordance with those best goals in mind. So I would entertain general questions about the three items, but they are three separate items. The architectural review is one question. Approving the construction of the bathroom facility is a second item. The YMCA scrubber purchase, that's an item that was in the budget. It's been needed for a long time. It's a specific scrubber piece of equipment to deal with the tile floors in the pool and in the locker rooms that we don't currently have.
Okay, thank you. So in general, I'll open it up for questions or comments on all three of these items.
Before I have any, well, thank you for your response to public concerns, and I also, ahead of this meeting, had another citizen contact me with concerns, just, I guess, more about spending more money, and my response was essentially just that we really want to make it a good long-term investment, and that we're making up for some of the corners that were corners that were cut initially. But before I have any other questions, I guess I'd be curious to hear Commissioner Bersheim if you have some further info to share.
Yeah, I could talk a long time, but I was involved in, as the first board chair of the Cook County Community YMCA Advisory Council. We were opening in January, 5 years ago, from last January, and this January. And one of the issues that we knew at the time was that this was inadequate substandard building, but there were value engineering issues, and Mr. Powers could speak to this more. Cutting costs, which I guess at the time was necessary because money had been spent on the library and so forth. So I don't want to lay blame at all. It's just that a decision was made by the county commissioners at that time to go ahead and open and accept the building the way it was. My recommendation by record was not to accept it. But that's just based on my experience with a lot of commercial-type facilities and buildings that I've been involved in. But, and so since day one, we had to have the floors done once because the water just wasn't draining at all, but there still was inadequate. And for those who have used the Y, we've had reoccurring problems. We have rust in the locker rooms. We've got, mold, not mold, but discoloring. Finishing of the walls has fallen off. The water still doesn't drain. We have one locker room where water pools every day. And in the winter especially, you get people in. So the feedback the Y has been receiving is, there's difficulty here. And the agreement between the county and the Y is for the county to maintain it, and the Y was going to run it. And I think that the county has done very, great attempts to try to maintain this building, but you can't maintain something that's just not designed to be functional. And so this whole idea of I've seen, I guess I go to the Y a lot, and I'm still involved in the county rep. I've seen problems with the HVAC system at least, 6 times, where it doesn't work. And it's not getting, and when it's working well, it's still not getting the moisture out of there. So the feedback to the Y has always been, can you do something about these lockers? And all the people, the 1,600 members, there's been about 400 to 500,000 people that have gone through that building since we've opened. Our average is from 80 to 88,000 a year, and I requested that information last year, so some work was done on it. That doesn't include the school children, the child care. So it gets a lot of use. And the point being that if you have things that aren't functioning well, you just have an accumulation of problems. And it's very frustrating for the custodial staff as well. So having this, I'm speaking now to the architectural review.
You did.
That would give us some indication, because we didn't receive from ORB any kind of, documentation of how this thing works. And all the times that it's been broken, people come out and they just try to fix it, and then it breaks down again. And the latest one is the jacuzzi area, where that goes right directly back to the construction of the building. And so I think we really need to find out how to fix this. Otherwise, it's just going to be an ongoing deferred maintenance issue, which costs a lot of money over time. And it seems very logical. And I appreciate Mr. Cadwell's work and the maintenance staff work in trying to continually fix these things, but it's going on. So that's what I have to say about the architectural design.
Some points that were missed there. First of all, we built a YMCA for 200 people, and we're near 2,000. So the locker room was built for 200 people. The problems we're having is we have way more than 200 people. We also did not build a daycare. We built a pool with equipment to work out. And now, because of the needs and because the Y responds to the community, and when the community says we need daycare, they stepped up. Or it would have been us, the county, that had to step up. So, yes, it seems like we didn't build it right to begin with, but we built it for what we thought it was going to be used for. And as we are using it, we are finding out that it needs to be something different than what we originally built it for. Commissioner Mills, I can't remember when you got on the city council and what part of this, obviously since I've been here for 6 years, the $20 million that was for multiple projects that was voted and approved by the citizens of Cook County, the Y originally was a $12 million project. And we went down to 9.5. And to do that, yes, some things were cut out. Probably the HVAC was changed and different things happened to save that money. So it's a lesson to learn when we have future construction projects. When you try to save money, it might come back and bite you in the rear end. So what we have and what we need to provide is daycare for people. What we have and what we need to provide is a facility that supports 2,000 members. To do that, we have to make these decisions. So that's what's in front of us.
It's good to have history. I think there's a lot of folks who don't remember when we used to go down to the campground and spend $200,000 to maintain one little building.
It was more than that.
More
They
than
got
that?
$100,000 from the county. They were in, they lost $200,000 a year operating it, and the city and the county together covered that loss.
And now we have a whole facility with much more than just swimming.
Yeah.
Commissioner Burchett.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, especially to Mr. Cadwell and to Commissioner Dukirk. I heard you say that this architectural review will look at how we expand the locker rooms? I thought it was just to fix them up.
No, we as a board need to take into consideration
Oh.
that we are supporting a larger group of people than originally built for.
The scope of the proposal before us is not about expansion. The scope of the proposal is to evaluate the systems, to evaluate the materials used, and to potentially take a look at the use of space. It's not out of the realm of possibility that one of the recommendations would be that there's not enough space to provide adequate sources for these, but it's not the scope of this project to say, let's build an addition either. So
Okay,
it is
so it's-
three primary issues: mechanical systems, including drains, the use of, appropriate use of materials, and I asked that 80% of the study be on those two things, and then somewhat of a look at the use of space. Is there a way we could use the existing space in a more economical fashion? So that's the components of this proposal.
Thank you.
So the quote that's in here says 125. That's in our packet.
Yeah, I thought you said 99.
Yes, and I asked the contractor to break those two things out, to separate out the bathroom from the mechanical portions. If you look at the quote that you have, what I asked him to separate out was the fire protection system and the mechanical system connections. And when he separated those two items out that are building, that tie the bathroom to the building, the new quote says $99,000 for the bathroom, $26,000 for the building.
Okay. And then there was a comment that demolition isn't included, but I see demolition included in this quote.
Demolition is included in that quote. The construction of the bathroom project is for the demolition, the cutting, the redoing, the complete delivery of a bathroom within that space. So yes, that's correct.
So are we going to work this into our future budget? How do you look at the?
So, Madam Chair, that's a very good question. The two items, the architectural review and the $25,000 of project expenses, would be coming from building funds. They would be coming out of Brian's regular building funds. And again, we're committing resources towards this one space, but we're doing so in a way to increase our capacity to provide services in the community, and also to take advantage of the grant opportunities that are sitting in front of us with the deadline on them.
I have a question.
Yes.
Where in the facility are these bathrooms going?
The bathrooms are going in the back hallway between the school and the gymnasium is where the infant room is. That room is self-sufficient with bathroom already included. The toddler and the preschoolers are in the next two rooms right at the entrance there. And the bathroom is actually going to be installed on a common wall between those two rooms, and will serve both of those facilities. So it's actually in the old lunchroom against the common wall that is shared with the school.
Well, with that part of the building being built in the 1960s, I believe.
Or sooner.
Or earlier.
Or earlier.
Uh-huh.
I would actually like to table the project until the review is done, because of if we're dealing with 60-year-old plumbing, we need to know what's going on there. This bill could go up higher. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
The answer to that question is the scope of the review is not going to be in that part of the building. And because the contractors were there and the tunnels that serve the plumbing and the mechanical needs for the school that were just used to tie in for the new culinary system, we have the ability to tie into that system. We're not going to have to retrofit all of the systems of the school back to the base. So we don't anticipate any complications. To the extent that we can be aware of it, we believe we're tying into a system that's good, that has already been brought up to code to make sure that the culinary center is supported.
And just for clarification, this review is not on the daycare portion, right? It's on, or is it the whole facility we're reviewing?
It's the whole facility, but 80% focus is on the mechanical systems related to the pool and the locker rooms.
What happens with our, this project is being covered by grants? If we table this and we don't do the project, do we lose that grant funding?
Yes.
Any other comments or questions? So,
And on this, you have your breakdown, IRRB for 70, Lloyd K for 10, Northland for 20. Has anyone outreached to the YMCA to have them throw in some money for this? Whether it's it's a county-owned building, has anyone outreached? Their name's on it. I'm getting the same messages. I probably got the same message that Dave got, you know. It's really frustrating the community, this building is, you know. Like I said before, I'm like a broken record. We can't fix any other county building, but boy, we sure can put the money into that place.
Yeah, the way I see it, you know, my initial response to Commissioner DeShaw's comment is I feel like we are developing our maintenance plan, countywide building maintenance plan. I guess what I hear a lot of comments about the frustrations with spending money on that building. What I hear more of is frustrations with lack of childcare, and that's really what I'm really hoping this is going to help a lot with that. And considering the amount we're getting from grants, it seems like a really good opportunity that I wouldn't want to pass up. And you're right that we're putting more money into the building, so it's both of those things. I'm happy to talk about tabling it, but after hearing that we'd lose that money, I'd be pretty leery to table it at this point.
okay, any further discussion or comment? We have a motion and a second.
Emily's here, if she'd be willing to answer some of the questions that we've brought up. The big one is there any funding coming from the Y to support this project? Y management?
Yeah, so to answer that question.
Emily, can you just introduce who you are?
I'm sorry, Emily Marshall, Cook County YMCA Executive Director. In regards to that question of can the Y put any money into it, with all due respect, we were the ones that wrote the grants for the 70,000, 20,000, and 10,000. So without that, we wouldn't have a majority of this project funded, and to table it even further, you know, we've already tabled it several times in order to give us the opportunity to come up with those funds, and we did. And to table it any further and lose out on that potential would be detrimental. And you know, in terms of, I know that it's been considered in the past to build facilities for daycares and things like that, and you have a great facility. It works great for daycare. There's just that this is the last piece and the last component in order to make it fully functional. It's sustainable. We're committed to it 110%. It'll increase capacity. I think it's win-win here to go ahead and move forward and not lose out on that grant funding.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? So we have a motion to table this, understanding the implications of that. All in favor? One. Those opposed? Same sign? Thank you. Okay, any further discussion on any of these three? Jeff, you want a separate motion on each one?
I think so, Madam Chair.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we will start with the architectural review. Motion on that?
I move to approve the architectural review.
Support.
Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The YMCA scrubber purchase. Motion to approve that.
So moved.
Support.
Any further discussion or comments on that?
What was happening before this?
Commissioner Mills, the floors are just being done by mop, and occasionally during shutdown periods, they were being deep scrubbed, but mostly by hand. And the purpose of this machine is to be able to deep clean the tile and attack the buildup and deal with the grout discoloration and build that into the regular maintenance so that care of those floors will be faster and provide better results. We, on the other floors, we share equipment with the school and use their big scrubber, but that big scrubber is not designed to be in the tighter spaces like the locker rooms, and it's also really not designed for those tile-type surfaces.
So this machine would do a great job for many years?
I would hope so. That's what they're telling us.
Okay. Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
And so this, I'm sorry, the scrubber was requested by Brian?
By Brian and his staff to take care of the floors.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions or comments? So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Show of hands. Opposed? Same sign. Okay, where am I?
The project update.
And the last one is the YMC project update.
So move to accept that project bid.
And second.
Any further discussion or questions on that?
Madam Chair, I would just note that it says to approve the estimate for construction of the bathroom and delegate authority to the county administrator to execute any related construction documents. And of course, those will be reviewed by Attorney Hicken.
My intention.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Show of hand by aye. Opposed, same sign.
It's the same construction project, that's just one.
Okay.
Thank you, Emily.
Anything else? Okay. So Molly will do a little presentation. She's given us an updating on the open meeting law.
Madam Chair, can we take a break while Molly sets up?
We can. 5-minute break?
I don't think so, I think I figured out how to do it.
Hi.
I'm Greg, I'm a new full-time resident of the county. And in my prior life, before we moved here, I covered Polk County, Wisconsin for 17 years.
We're having some trouble because when you guys speak, you're good.
Oh, thank you.
The systems are very good.
So it's been very interesting because they say
Your head is
I've
tucked down,
covered all the
and then
committees,
there's
all
a kind
the
of, it comes across to those of us in the audience as kind of a muttering. You can't really hear clearly what it is that you're saying. So it may be just a question of turning up the whole busyness so that we can hear.
I got a question for you, because I heard something about this. Would you support spending more money to get a more updated system that works better?
Because it's a question of remembering to speak into the microphone.
But I think you're part of the sound system.
But if the question is just turning it up a little, that's okay too.
I think, I've had experience with sound systems, and there's more to it that I think than that. We would have to get better multi-directional mics, you know, and,
Possibly longer arms on mics.
but human behavior is hard to control.
I know.
You know, I think if we all grabbed it and just spoke.
Okay, the mic ends up being too far away, so if you had like a longer arm, you
Or even
could
just
sit
a-
back in your chair.
Even
We
though
could get
clip-on.
these-
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, now, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, there's always going to be the human error, but the only way I could see it is that we'd have to force ourselves just to go like this.
But see, if you had a longer arm, you could sit back in your chair
Hi, Mike.
and just take the mic over you and go sort of get it.
Human behavior is hard to deal with.
Did you, what were you hoping to, you wanted to say something, was it mic related before? Oh, what,
Part of the problem that I have is that if there's points of clarification or even questions relating to the issue, no one can ask them before it goes to a vote. She said, well, you'll have to see us later. Well, you've already voted.
Right.
So my question was, if we're allotting this $25,000 to benefit, back up another step.
Sure.
I agree with what the surveyor was proposing. I think it's fabulous and a great idea for the county. However, when he talks about laying out all of these posts, and he's laying them out for private landowners, and it's going to be busy, it's going to cost $25,000. It seems to me, why is the county paying for that? Why aren't we prorating that with the individual landowners who are ultimately the beneficiaries if they decide to sell or transfer or whatever? Just some,
It could be a payback, but you'd have to have the initial investment.
well, yeah, okay, but that wasn't addressed at all, is all I'm saying. Just saying, it's nickels and dimes, but they add up.
so what would be the difference?
But they have paid for it with the funds that are here. That's been paid by landowners. It's been user fees.
All right, so it's already in the coffers.
Yes, it comes from people that have paid for services, so it.
No.
This
Not
is
until
not a
we
county
get done at
expense.
AMC.
That is a budget that's accumulated from fees.
No, I'm gonna write down a check, but here's the
So
bummer.
it's not,
They're
we
flying
didn't
out for
approve
the
anything
wedding.
out of the budget.
So I was gonna write down with Jeff.
Fee-based
Sue's
program.
car home.
Okay.
So they
well,
didn't have to
then
have two
that
cars on the
might
way
be good to
home.
clarify.
Well, now I have to pick up my car.
Yeah, good question.
That's a good
Yeah,
question.
Yeah, and it is frustrating to not be able to have that interaction in the meeting, you know, well, I mean, sure, but.
You could, you don't use cell phone, but that you could send a message to people, could you actually, during the meeting, it wouldn't be an interruption, you see.
That's a great idea, but they move along so quickly that by the time you're inputting, you've missed half of what's being said, and you have to take the time out to look at what's showing up on the
It's a long agenda.
If this was like a forum or something, that would be like an extreme.
If I'm not there at 5,
Yeah.
go without.
Well, you better be there. This is gonna be a good evening.
Should be, yeah, we deserve it.
I know. I know you won't, but I'll have 2 drinks.
And I've been in meetings where we constantly, I never
I
get
have
them
a
done.
non-alcoholic beer and I get a
Or
headache.
you get
It's
recognized
sugar,
by-
yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
I'm trying to make
Other
it
board
work,
members,
you know,
I
and I get a headache.
Yeah.
And so I tried non-alcoholic and that last time I had one was down.
Oh, yeah?
I got a headache.
Oh,
It's not
no.
supposed to be
That
any
our tennis
alcohol.
board is
Very little
on.
alcohol. I'm wondering if it's a sugar.
Could be.
Because I get a headache. Like
It's our own
You
people
don't really
constantly interrupting.
eat much sugar.
It's really frustrating too.
You're gonna have one for me or even 2.
Thank you.
We gotta have a second, we gotta have a vote, eventually you get that.
Right.
Yeah, the best, so we have to take care of business, right? And we need to keep it orderly. The best, with that framework, the best that I've seen so far is getting the agendas out ahead of time and having citizens ask questions about those before the meeting, so then we can kind of try to address those in the meeting too. But it's still not a back and forth necessarily in the meeting, you know?
You almost have to have some packets, because the depth of the subjects is, I mean, like the agenda could just say surveyor.
Oh, yeah, no, the packets are available. I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah. Sorry, I said agenda, but I meant the whole.
These are
yeah.
packets, part of the
So
packet.
it is available, you know, even on my phone, I can read all 220 pages
Yeah.
during the meeting pretty easily.
That's, yeah, or beforehand is.
Or before, better.
Beforehand is.
Quite helpful with it.
Yeah.
But it's a matter that the cell phone or iPad or anything does
Sure.
give you access to all the detail, and I go, you know, I'm often going through it line by line, looking what's going on during the meeting. I attend a lot of the meetings.
Yeah, that's good.
So, you know, it's just available on the
And the
county.
site is?
It's just
Well, it's in Cook County.
It's the Cook County website.
It's right on the front
from
page.
the front page.
co.cook.
Public
You get the-
information about her
you get Cook County here, you go to agenda.
It's on the website.
It's on the website.
Yeah.
That's what I do during the meeting too,
Yeah.
except for
So-
Jeff just told me I'm
in the-
behind because there's a live version that gets updated.
We'll be rolling that out shortly.
If you go to the auditor's
Oh, for
office,
public,
there's a
too?
little handy little
Absolutely, and then
piece of
the
paper
public
there
can
that
subscribe to
gives them
updates
the
and notices and get
Yeah.
emails and.
You log on to there, and it says agendas and meetings,
Fantastic.
and you click on that, and then it
Thank you,
breaks it
Karen.
out to which meeting you're looking for.
Okay, now, is the agenda put on the website before the meeting?
Yes.
How was your committee?
Usually the Thursday before
It's awesome.
the meeting.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, it was great. And you know what's funny is there was 2 newly elected commissioners there at that training that I went to the newly elected city official training with.
Oh, cool. And
Ben-
now they're commissioners.
2 of them, Ben DiNucci out of Nashwauk. And he's the mayor now, I guess. Or he was the mayor, and now he's the commissioner. And then Steve Barrows in Crow County, and he was city councilor for Baxter. So, and I went and had lunch with Steve. He came to town on a vacation with friends, so I got to see him after the fact. It's just really fun networking like that.
Yeah. I'll talk to you more about some of your opinions. And
Yeah, well, I was mainly just trying to soak it in, you know.
That was so much. For my first round, I went back 2 years later.
Oh, yeah.
Because
That's
it's
a great-
like,
yeah.
It's got a
I need
message
a
from
refresher.
Sarah Dish.
Some of this
Yeah,
stuff.
no, that's a really good idea.
Sarah Dish
There
was
were
in the
some
ditch on
commissioners there that
Cemetery
weren't
Road.
newly elected, just like, yeah. Oh, that's good, though. On the family.
Cemetery Road is in Maple Hill.
No, they did their own thing while I was in meetings. all the
Dad
time.
was good deal. And Heidi do
Stick together that way. They're not coming down for the legislative, but,
Unlike Dad, it's Maple Hill.
Nope. So Molly, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, we're going to talk about open meeting law. Woo-hoo!
Fun.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners, members of the public. I just want to take an opportunity to I like to do this every couple of years as we have new commissioners sworn in, and it's also a great reminder for those of you who've seen the presentation before on our serious obligations to keep meetings open and make decisions in front of the public as required by the open meeting law. Open meeting law is part of Minnesota statute as opposed to federal law. And Minnesota is kind of known for its rules regarding access to the public. We have some really strong public access sunlight type laws here in Minnesota as compared to other states. Of course, those laws have limits, and so I'll describe some of those limits here today. The general purpose of the open meeting law is to prohibit actions from being taken at a secret meeting where it's impossible for interested public to become fully informed concerning the public body's decision or to detect improper influences. So we're trying to avoid the making of decisions in dark, back rooms, since the public is entitled to know or to see those decisions being made, essentially. It's to assure the public's right to be informed and to afford the public an opportunity to present its views to the public body. So the rule in general, you could say, meetings of public bodies must be open to the public. That is the general rule. And I even added an exclamation point, and I'm really conservative with the exclamation points, so you know that it's important. Now, if any of your decisions, if you were to be challenged in for a violation of open meeting law, the courts always are going to construe open meeting law in favor of public access. They liberally construe open meeting law in order to protect the public's rights to full access to public bodies' decision making. So, but we have to break down this rule a little bit. What is a public body? Because only meetings of public bodies must be open. What is a meeting? Because only if it is defined as a meeting must it also be open. And then what does open actually mean? So obviously I'm presenting this to you because you as a county board are a public body. Other public bodies that must adhere to open meeting law are working sessions and workshops. And any committee, subcommittee, board, department, and commissioner of the county board, if you've delegated them authority to make decisions for you, not just make recommendations to the board, but to make decisions. Other entities that aren't necessarily county related, the EDA, joint powers entities and boards, planning commission, zoning, I guess these are all, many of them are county affiliated. But I just heard Mr. Carlson mention his school board meetings are public meetings, are public meetings of a public body that must be open. So advisory committees are a question depending on what kind of authority you've given them, what is their role. If you have an advisory committee where you've delegated them decision-making powers, either by your own action or because of statute, ordinance, or other formal act, those are going to need to be open. And if you just can go back to the general rule, we don't make decisions in secret. If you're having your advisory committees actually make the decisions for you, take actions that otherwise you would make, then they're going to be required to be open meetings. So what is a meeting that is required to be open? A meeting is defined as a quorum of commissioners or public official that is discussing county business. So 2 of you talking in the hall is not a meeting. 2 of you talking about the baby shower you just went to or heard about is not a meeting. But 3 of you discussing an item on the agenda in the hallway is a meeting. Quorum for our purposes is 3. Discussion of county business. So what does that mean? You're discussing, deciding, or receiving information as a group on issues related to the official business of your governing body. That's why the baby shower isn't business. And if you're discussing something that the RTC did at their meeting, or that the city councilors did at their meeting, you're not discussing county business in that case. So open meeting law cannot be circumvented by having serial meetings with less than a quorum of the members. What I mean by that is if you are attempting to avoid having an open meeting, making decisions in an open meeting by 2 commissioners meeting to talk about a subject, talking about how they'll vote, what they'll discuss, so that's allowed. But then if one of those commissioners then goes to a 3rd commissioner and says, here's what we were talking about, and what we're thinking about deciding at the meeting. And then one of those commissioners goes to the 4th. And so in that way, you're all exchanging information and kind of discussing. That's called a serial meeting. And if you're using a serial meeting to try to avoid open meeting law, that would be a violation. Yes.
This topic was discussed a little bit at the the training that Commissioner DeShawn and I went to. And one of the interesting points that I took away, and I hope, I mean, not that I've done anything wrong so far, but I hope that I'm understanding it right, is that say there was an issue that I've received from the public and want to bring to the board. My understanding is it's okay for me to tell everyone what that, not at once, but one-on-one, what that is, as long as there's not a back and forth about that, if it's just like a presentation. My understanding was that that's okay, and that surprised me, because usually I'm just not going to discuss anything outside of the open meeting.
So in other words, you're introducing a topic, you're saying there's something that...
This is a topic, and this is where I stand. As long as there's not a back and forth, a dialogue.
And as long as you don't say, I already talked to.
Yes, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine.
It gets tricky, though. So I'm happy that.
You're getting a little closer to the line, but
right.
that specific example would be okay. We wouldn't want to use, for open meeting law, to be interpreted in such a way that you're unable to have any conversations with fellow commissioners outside of this room. Because your own meetings are going to be way less efficient. You're going to be able to get less done. Misunderstandings will happen. People won't have the right information in front of them or have asked the right questions. So those conversations benefit the public and shouldn't be completely
right. Yeah. Thank you.
Molly, in applying this to email, we could send an email to one commissioner or not?
That's coming up next, isn't it?
I do have a slide about email
Okay,
communication
thank you.
specifically.
So, but this is in regard to a serial meeting question. Is that addressed later too?
If you're calling an email between I think you can call that akin to a conversation between two commissioners.
Okay.
And we do talk about serial meetings in relation to emails later.
Okay, thank you.
And then the courts have said that any process, quote, designed to avoid public hearings is a violation of the law. So if you find yourself trying to find ways out of open meeting law, just stop, because that in itself, designing a process in order to avoid it is a violation in itself. What is a meeting? So again, we talked about quorum. Now we'll talk about emails, texts, and other ways of communication. So these are more and more common and more helpful to us in communicating with each other as county officials. If you're on a group text or an email that includes 3 commissioners, you can consider that a quorum. If it resembles a conversation, you can consider that a meeting. So this is why I'm always telling you to watch out for reply to all. Reply to all is a mechanism where if Administrator Cadwell sent out an email to the 5 commissioners to tell them that they can expect a certain topic to be on the agenda, and one of you replies all and says your views on that opinion, you've started a conversation. If somebody else replies all and tells their, in response to your opinion, you're now having a discussion between a quorum of commissioners outside of a public meeting. Bad. Don't do that. And the same goes for, I guess, Commissioner Bersheim, in your example, if you were to have a conversation between 2 commissioners by email, and then you forwarded that conversation, because you could see below your email is the email you had between you and another commissioner. You forward it to another commissioner to say, what are your thoughts on this? I think that might be considered to be a serial meeting.
Okay.
You've now brought a quorum into the same discussion.
To follow that, then, if you send an email to one commissioner, and that's it, and it's just an announcement, not a discussion, and then you send an email to another one singly, without any discussion and you send it to a third, is it then a quorum?
Well, this sounds like Commissioner Mills' example. It's just by email. So you're introducing a topic, you're saying, here's how I feel.
Well,
You're doing it separately, you're not asking for a discussion.
right.
You're just putting them on notice. That's different than a discussion.
Okay.
It should probably be explicitly said, do not respond or something
Yeah,
like.
that's what I mean, that's what I do.
Yeah.
If this is gonna come up, if I can't reach someone individually and I say, do not respond to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say the same thing in both in the digital world and in the real world when you're having those conversations. Because you're approaching that line of open meeting law, put the other commissioner on notice that you're not looking for a discussion here. And that's also going to protect you if anyone accuses you of trying to violate open meeting law. I'm not trying to do anything wrong here. We're not having a discussion outside of the meeting. You just now know my piece.
And the other thing I learned was that you can do the reply to all if you're just scheduling a meeting. Finding
I
a
don't
date.
even like that.
I know, but it's legit,
like,
but
stop
it's.
sending me, just. Not that I don't care that you're not at the meeting, but really, I don't need to know who's coming.
We've talked about that before too. If all you're trying to do is align your schedules so that you can meet and set an open meeting and give the public notice and have your discussion in an open meeting, that is not a violation of open meeting law. You're just scheduling it.
The easier way to schedule a meeting, though, is allow my office and April to coordinate that information so that everybody knows everything and it's being consolidated in one spot and then communicated appropriately.
Yeah, there's usually a chair or a director of anything that you're on, and it's just let them handle it. That's what they're there for.
There is a part of the statute, 13D, if you're interested, if you want to look it up, is 13D is the chapter of Minnesota statutes that deals with open meeting law. There are a couple different places in 13D that talk about other than in-person meetings. In order to comply with open meeting law, but with an interactive TV model, I don't believe in recent memory we've done this. And it can be complicated, which is one reason why I don't think we encourage it. But let's say there was a medical emergency that kept a commissioner from being able to personally attend this meeting. They had to be down in Duluth for medical procedures, so they couldn't be more than a mile or two away from the hospital. But there was an important issue on the agenda they really needed to be a part of. The discussion for. They can appear at the meeting by interactive TV. The rules are that whatever conference room at Essentia Health, for example, they're appearing from, needs to be accessible to the public. There has to be at least one commissioner here, which contemplates that you could essentially have everyone else appearing by ITV and only one commissioner here. But the part of the meeting has to be here because it has to be observable by the public in the place where your regular meetings are noticed, right? And then every place where that a commissioner is appearing by ITV then needs to be included on your notice. You have to say, a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners is occurring at the Commissioners' Room with Commissioner DeShaw appearing from a conference room in Superior, Wisconsin, open to the public at this address. So those are the rules. You can see that could get complicated
And it has to be the 10-day notice?
I don't think it would be a special meeting, but.
Okay. It just has to be noticed.
You'd use the ITV room, no, not this room, you'd use the ITV room.
You might have to know, if we didn't have the ITV capability in this room, we'd have to give notice that it was something we had.
We did have a situation where Commissioner Hakes had to call in and she was not allowed to vote on anything on the agenda that day. But she wanted to be part of the discussion.
That is interesting. Because I will now talk about telephone meetings. And
Perfect.
telephone meetings require a health pandemic or emergency. And maybe that was what this situation was. So in the case of our government structure, it would be the county administrator or the chair of the board or the county attorney has determined that an in-person or ITV meeting is not practical or prudent because of a health pandemic or emergency. Pretty limited exception there. So the statute has carved out a bigger exception for ITV than it has for telephone meetings. That makes sense because with ITV, if the technology is working properly, you can see the commissioner on the other end. You can, it's more of a discussion instead of a disembodied voice. What is not a meeting? So these would not fall under open meeting law because they're not meetings. If commissioners by chance bump into each other outside of this room, or if they're at a purely social gathering, it's not a meeting, as long as they don't take that opportunity to discuss county business. Once a quorum of you starts discussing county business at the brewery or something, that is exactly what we're trying to avoid. Obviously, less than 3 commissioners, not a quorum, not a meeting. Meetings with county employees or staff are not required to follow open meeting law because we're only talking about public bodies here, so county officials who are part of the board, voting members of the board.
Is that a meeting?
In a gathering of a quorum where an employee hands out a copy, this is really specific, where an employee hands out a copy of a written document to each and does not discuss, commissioners do not then have a group discussion, that is not a meeting. Also not a meeting, any kind of a training or educational event where a quorum happens to be there but is intermingled among a larger body of people. So sometimes you've had a training that's available to all county staff and you've got 40 staff members here plus 3 commissioners. If it's purely training educational event, it is not a meeting. As long as no county business is discussed between those, between the quorum. And then written communications among the quorum of officials. There's you kind of have to do some interpretation here between written communications and what is an email string. If your written communication is more like you've sent a letter to your fellow commissioners in the old style, you send it 3 days later, they open it up in their mail, read it, consider it individually. That's the type of written communications we're talking about. And an email could be like that. If you have been considering something really carefully, you draft out a 3-paragraph email and you say, fellow commissioners, these are my thoughts on this subject, and you send it off not expecting a return and maybe asking them not to reply to your email. That'd be more like a written communication that is allowed and is not a meeting. But if it's the type of email communication we were talking about before, where you've sent an email to the 5, reply all, somebody has replied all saying their opinion, a second commissioner has replied all saying, yeah, but I want to think about this. Now, that's more like a discussion, like an in-person meeting at the tavern, right? So don't do that. And what does open meeting? So what's open meeting? It's a quorum, and it's a meeting, and it's among a public body. We now know you have to comply with open meeting law, so what does that mean? It means that you have to have given notice, at least to the minimum notice requirements under open meeting law, which simply means you've said where you'll meet, and you've said when you'll meet. Notice that the minimum notice requirements do not require an agenda to be posted or publicized. So notice, voting records, and printed materials. voting record, the second requirement of an open meeting. That's why, part of why Ms. Hawkins is here taking notes. She's making sure that we have adequate records of who had voted for what, who's made the motion, who made the second, and whether there are any nays. And those are all available at the auditor's office. Or is it the administrator's office? For us.
When they finally, well, I mean, she's doing the minutes,
Yeah.
so they're back and forth. When they're finished, they're published, of course, on our website. There's a book in the administrator's office. We still keep a physical copy
Yep.
of all the minutes. There's do a lot of copies.
And
So it's in both places.
So we have a book that includes the voting records, and that's how it's happened for decades. And then recently, with our updated website and different digital tools, we can now publish them online so that someone can pull them up from their home. And then printed materials, this also includes just access to digital materials online. Any printed material that is presented to the board during an open meeting is then public data and should be accessible to the public. And of course, there are exceptions to that for private or confidential information presented to the board privately because we're required to keep it confidential or private. Some personnel data, like an example is today with our closed session, I had a memo for the board that was attorney-client privileged. That's an exception to this rule. But otherwise, all materials should be accessible to the public. That's another reason that we have the board secretary role is Stacy's obligation is to make sure that that board packet includes what's presented here at the meeting, and then eventually will go up on our website and be accessible to anyone. This just goes in a little bit further into notice because there are different requirements for regular meeting notice and special meeting notice and emergency notice. And all of those meetings have different categories. Essentially, our regular meetings, we give notice at the beginning of the year typically as to when they'll occur and where they'll occur. And that is kept on record in the administrator's office. Anything outside of those regular meetings is considered a special meeting and requires special notice, at least 3 days of the place and time for that meeting. And then also, I believe we have to publish the purpose of a special meeting. Emergency meetings are really rare, only called because of circumstances that require the immediate attention of the public body. So if there was a natural disaster and the county needed to immediately take some action to spend money or, to designate it an emergency, that might be an emergency meeting. I'll just touch on county board workshops and working sessions. If these are not held as part of regular meetings, it should be noticed as board regular meetings. More voting record. This talks about the journal we talked about. Materials. This is at least one copy of any printed materials or meeting agenda items for the meeting prepared by or at the direction of the county board or staff. And distributed at the meeting to all county commissioners or before the meeting or available in the meeting must then be available in the meeting room for public inspection. And of course, the exception is other than not public materials, like my memo today. Here are exceptions for which you can close meetings. So any PELRA-related discussions, so these are union negotiations, they may be closed. They still must be tape recorded so that I assume for any kind of litigation that's related to those. Attorney-client privilege. In the case of attorney-client privilege, we don't record those conversations. performance evaluations, property transactions, security briefings. These are all two exceptions. So these may be closed. The board has the option of closing them, but need not necessarily. And there's another category of meetings which must be closed. Data that would identify alleged victims or reports of criminal sexual conduct, domestic abuse, or maltreatment of minors. Active investigative data collected by a law enforcement agency, and it's rare that the county board would ever be involved in these type of investigations, so it's hard for me to come up with an example for you of when it might occur, but now you know that if they do occur, these would be mandated closed. And then educational, health, medical, or mental health data that are not public. So sometimes I think these might come into personnel-related discussions. There's a procedure for closing a meeting. The county board or committee states on the record the specific grounds permitting the meeting to be closed, describes the subject to be discussed during the closed meeting, and then closes the meeting. And those closed meetings need to be tape recorded, as I previously mentioned, except for attorney-client.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. You can always talk to me individually, shoot me an email, or give me a call if you have questions.
I have a question. It's not related to open meeting law, though. Our information or data requests, is that public? Is that public information? The request itself?
In general, the request itself would be public data. If the request is specifically refers to something that's not public, like I want in the case of like a parent who had been investigated for child maltreatment and said, I want my social services records. Well, the existence of the social service record of an individual is not public. So that type of request was not public. But the majority of our requests for public data are 100% public.
What's the distinction on the first page? Public body is all committees, subcommittees, boards, departments, commissions. And then on the second page, advisory committees only if they have the authority to exercise decision-making powers. We don't use that advisory committee language very often.
So these, so this bullet point, the third bullet point here, all committees, subcommittees, boards, departments, and commissions of the county board. These are where the county board has created a committee that is a decision-making committee.
Okay, assumes decision-making. Yeah. Okay.
And so in the way this language is used, you're assuming that they are decision-making committees, subcommittees. And advisory committees are sometimes outside. I think the majority of our committees are advisory committees and don't have any decision-making authority delegated to them. So they wouldn't be called a body.
Okay.
So a recommendation from a committee is not considered an action.
Yeah, the board will submit to the committee for a recommendation to the board. The subcommittee might be an example of that. But the board should still be having its discussion, making its decision, deciding whether to accept that recommendation or not in an open meeting.
Thanks again. If we have any other questions, I'm sure we'll be in touch. Moving on to commissioner concerns, we have commissioner reports. Ready?
I will not be attending the AMC conference today through Thursday. I'm on the Transportation Committee. I was down last week with Kristen for Transportation Day at the Capitol. We met with Rob Eklund, or Representative Eklund, Senator Bach. We were pretty fortunate that Dwayne Hill was able to attend our meeting with Senator Bach, so
Yeah,
it was
really.
actually kind of really nice. And the stuff that the Transportation Committee is focusing on or going to would be bridge bonding, because we have 13 or 11 deficient bridges in our county. We are supporting the 10 cents a gallon gas tax and we are supporting the auto part sales tax.
Oh, okay.
So that's my report from last week.
Okay. And we'll cover for you where we need to.
Yeah, I think whatever is going to be discussed at the committee tomorrow, we have already discussed, so I don't think there's a need for anybody to have to go there, so.
No voting or anything?
No.
Okay, very good, thank you. Anybody else on reports? Meetings to note. We've been kind of quiet on that. Meeting updates. Anything updating? No? Okay. So then we have February anniversaries. Woo-hoo, woo-hoo.
So we have Tim Nelson, our Land Service Director, 20 years. That's his Valentine Day present, as he likes to say. And then we have Sarah Schonover in Public Health and Human Services. Hopefully I didn't kill that last name. But thank you both for long-term and short-term. We appreciate it all, so thank you.
Okay. No other business, then we'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
We are adjourned.
Drive careful, everyone.
Yeah.
He's self-contained, she's got her stuff. Nothing in Cook County, I've got my stuff here.
I heard that. I'm self-contained. No.
I've got my stuff here. I do need to run an errand.
In the
though, if I
bonding.
may.
In the bonding?
I will pick my car up on Thursday.
I won't be.
I'm sorry?
20 minutes?
So that's, yeah.